I am not in the center. Now we fixed that.
Ah.
Okay, we're good. So, welcome to the Yap of Us, episode 3, discussing episode 2 of HBO's The Last of Us, Through the Valley. I am Michael, the Zoo Boy, and as always, I am joined with Tangy Fungus, Austin.
Howdy.
Dr. Forgon, Tyler.
What's up?
T-Mac Swag, also Tyler.
What's up, boys?
And Star Wars Collective, Jacob.
How's it going? Endure and survive. Good to be back.
Hell yeah, boys. So I did this last week, and I liked it, so I think I'm going to do it going forward, just so we get the first initial, right off the bat reaction. So how do we feel, boys? Thumbs up, thumbs down, in the middle, anywhere in between? Let's go.
I'm like you go up and down.
All right.
I'm teetering. I'm teetering back and forth.
That's fair. There are two major plot points in this episode, so it could also make sense. So, yeah. Phil, they are made by Austin. So you
Thank
can
you so
thank
much.
him 100%. Nothing to
I
do with
wonder
me.
who makes them.
Yeah, nothing to do with me. So all the love for the thumbnails can go straight to Tangy. So
Shout out Tangy.
Shout
Oh,
out
yeah.
Tangy. Another common Tangy W.
true. Very, very true. Great for Instagram creators. We know they're the
right.
best. They're the pinnacle. But so this episode is a doozy for sure. I'll say it a million times this episode, especially when we get to the end. But there is heavy plot spoilers that happen in this episode. If you have not watched The Last of Us, I highly advise you do not watch this. But
We got to get like a flashing light. That's
yes, that's
don't.
at some point I could only warn people so many times. So when we get to the end, I'll do a final warning. But to me, this episode seemed like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones and then the Battle of the Bastards combined. I've seen that's not a wholly original thought by me. I've seen lots of people say that. If anyone's seen Game of Thrones, it's, a mix of huge battles and character deaths and crazy stuff. So it's just fitting to describe it that way. But unlike last week's episode where we went episode or scene by scene, we're going to go do it a little differently tonight because of the two major points of the episode. I'd like to discuss one and then the other. But the first two, we can talk about them scene by scene. So the first opening scene of the episode was Abby's nightmare. And the first thing that I noticed, and it's only something that would bother really nitpicky game players like myself, is the hospital alarm was different. And that's kind of strange because in the trailer, it was the same hospital alarm from the game.
Yeah.
But that's something I immediately noticed. Really not significantly important, but it is strange that they changed it when it wasn't that way in the trailer. But that's okay. It was a higher pitch.
I wonder if that was just old footage when they made the trailer.
Right, or maybe they didn't have the sound design,
Yeah.
and they just put it from the game. But yeah, game viewer. Yeah. But we see Abby have a nightmare, of course, something that clearly has not happened. This isn't the first time. It's clearly happened many times before. She is clearly taken aback by this whole situation. And it's been 5 years, as we saw from the first episode, but she's not over it. Now, I'm sure anyone who's lost a parent, as we find out later in this episode, that Abby lost her father, or if you've lost anyone close to you, you don't really get over it. You just deal with it. But there's something in Abby that makes her react differently from everybody else. And you see that throughout the episode. When her friends, they cut to reactions of all her friends, and they all are acting and looking a different way, but not Abby. Abby is different. And it's that difference that makes her be willing to do things that everybody else in her group is like, nope, we're far enough now. but not Abby, like I said. So before I get into the rest of what Abby does in that scene, do any of you guys have anything to say specifically about her nightmare?
Yeah, real quick, I want to say that you're totally okay with being nitpicky. By the end of this episode, people are going to probably think I am nitpicky as hell because I've just got a whole checklist of things to say. But the nightmare specifically, I liked it and I didn't like it. I do feel like we are learning way too much about this character too soon. And my argument to defend that, if anyone liked Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister is a character we spent 3 whole seasons with hating until we find out more about his background in a very, very powerful monologue that was earned because we spent so much time hearing about this atrocity and experiencing the negative impacts of this character. Whereas I fear that we're not holding back enough with Abby this early in this story, where these are elements that we learn about her much later down the line. So I am scared. Yeah, in the game. Full disclosure, I told Michael this a little bit earlier, yesterday. I don't think it's possible for me to judge this show by itself anymore because of the game and my.
I'm starting to feel that way too. So
yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of the changes in the first season I liked for the better, but in this season, because I think I liked the second game a little bit more.
Right.
I'm a little bit more protective. So I don't know. It's still, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I definitely am a little bit more worried after this episode and like micro details, like revealing that her father was the doctor and that she was traumatized by this. And even in the last episode, her just expositing to us that, oh, I need to kill Joel. I need to kill Joel slowly. And then what we find out, the results of her motivations later. I think some of the surprise in the game for what she does or doesn't do is way more impactful because we know less about this character. But that's my final note before I get too ahead of myself.
That's fair.
I got to give this one to Austin. I think last week, I didn't too much mind her saying immediately that she wants to, kill Joel or whatever. And then once we get to the nightmare scene, the scene is not bad. It's just, I agree with you. I think we're learning too much.
That's what's difficult. I like all the scenes that we see. I like them. I like the way
for like later on,
Right. I like the way that they're written, and I love the whole don't go in there. His brains are on the floor, or whatever the quote is. It's like that's great writing. It's just like I agree.
Why
it's
now?
Some of it just feels a little handholdy and talky of we have to make you feel for this character now. But I think the soul of the story of the game is you find that out later.
And she had real quick, Zeus. She has like a major moment towards the end, which we don't get in the game, and I feel like they could have come back later and shown that with her, and it would have been better served instead of laying everything out again like they did. And that's an excellent comparison with Jaime Lannister. That's
yes, for sure.
I feel the same thing could have worked. Maybe it will still accomplish what it needs to accomplish by the time we get the end of it. But I do kind of feel like they have overcorrected a little bit for people, and that is kind of disheartening. But like the scene itself is good. I don't have any problem with the scene itself.
Right, and that's what I mean too. Like I feel the way Austin does, even though I still like the scenes. I just disagree with the choice.
Right.
I think that I'm reserving judgment until maybe not even this season is finished, but maybe until the story is finished. So it would be next season as well, because I have to see, like Psycho said in this comment, what the whole point of the story is in this adaptation. Obviously, as you know, we're all game players, we know what the point of the story is in the game, but are they telling that same specific story about love, about grief, such? But we don't. I think for again, it's hard, like Austin said, for us because we're all game players. But I'll talk about this more when I get to the meat of the episode. But the reaction that someone should feel now, I worry that they may not. And my parents, who I've mentioned before that I watched it with them, my mom got the intended reaction for sure. I'm very happy. My dad did not, and that's a little worrying. So again, I don't want to give too much away right now, but when we get to it later, I'll explain more. But
I'm worried the same, Zoo, because my dad, same thing, correct reaction. But my best friend, I haven't talked to him yet about it, and I think he might go the opposite way. I don't know. He might, get the right reaction, but I am a little worried about that too.
That right reaction.
Yeah,
it kind of there's obviously a switch. And if you're already at the other side of the switch, then it kind of makes the whole thing seem
won't land as well, I guess.
Right.
What's up, Hunter?
Ooh, Hunter.
What
Caught up on the whole show.
Nice, dude.
Damn.
Bruh.
What's up, Hunter? I'm wondering if, just to play devil's advocate, that in context of television, that they're just trying to do this because as gamers, when we've all played the games, obviously, we have a certain level of patience, right? Gamers have the ability to sit, beat the boss, play it over and over, finally complete the level, right? So I think in the context of the video game, we get to see Abby's story unfold more, whereas a television show, they want to just hook you right away, and they're just going to kind of divulge information that perhaps would be better if they saved it for later, but it's a television show again. So again, just trying to play devil's advocate because Austin made a good point with the whole Jaime Lannister arc and how we didn't like him for the first 3 seasons. And then we get that whole, stabbing the Mad King in the backstory and telling him that to Brienne of Tarth. So,
and that was years of waiting,
Yeah, right.
I don't.
And
think
you didn't even know you
wrong.
were waiting for it either.
That's
a
what
good
I
point.
think. I was kind of saying that last week. It's like, because this is a game that they're splitting up into 2 seasons of television, I feel like in their heads they think like, maybe we should not rush it, but tell a lot of it now so people will have more patience. But I don't know. With the Game of Thrones example, I think TV viewers are pretty patient. I don't know that we have to hold their hands like that.
I think they're fearful. In fact, I know they are because I read interviews with Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin that by not revealing the stuff early, that people will just look it up and they'll say it's from the game. I could just find out. And I could understand that point of view, but I don't necessarily still the right thing to do.
Did anybody look up what happened in Game of Thrones if you didn't read the book?
True. It's very true. It is an adaptation. I think what Jacob is saying is correct in that that's the way that's the intention. But the question is, does it land? And I think that's what we're all struggling with, is that even though I think that is what was intended, we don't really know, and I don't think we will know until at least the season's over, if it was the right choice. So I think that for me personally, the jury is out, and I will wait and see.
Yeah, I want to iterate, like I'm not like this show sucks. I hate this sort of thing. Like I'm still like very much on board. I think I said it earlier. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm worried, but I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I really like Psycho's comment. I do think that it's more difficult to tell, the story in a week-to-week format. On that a little bit, I mean, not to jump down Psycho's throat a little bit, but I think that's can be argued into like the television versus game kind of argument. Last of Us was created to be a video game,
Right.
and now they're adapting it to a series, and it's like you're taking away something that made this story work so well by translating it into a different medium entirely. I think I've said it all in like the very first episode of this, but you're not Joel like in the show. You're watching Joel, right. And now it's just kind of rehashing all of that again. But I guess my point would be, why are we adapting this then if like you don't have like the faith in your audience to stick around?
I guess my overall thing is specifically with HBO, we know they can be patient, and we know like people who watch stuff on HBO are accustomed to that. And I feel like they could use a little bit of that here. And for some reason, they've let fears of other things or like the need to immediately hook you kind of outweigh what HBO does all the time. Typically.
I understand.
Like, let it build kind of a
right.
thing.
I understand the wanting to first have a little bit of sympathy towards her and then have it ripped away. But I feel like we have too much sympathy now to where the point maybe it won't be ripped away. And again, for my mom, it was. For my dad, it wasn't. And that's the thing. Because it should be. The sympathy should be ripped away by the end of the episode. But if there are people who understand, then maybe too much was revealed. But
like,
again,
I did watch the post-show thing this week, and Craig Mazin almost point blank like tells you at the very end of that episode that Abby and Ellie's story are supposed to mirror one another, and I'm like, sitting here like, you're not supposed to fucking like get that like until
we get to
like I don't even want to like touch it because that's just spoilers.
Yeah.
But man,
they got to quit doing that, bro.
Like, what are we doing here? You're taking away some of the enjoyment of the. Sorry to go ahead, T-Mac.
No. Like I was thinking, like I think that's why, not to like jump all the way ahead and break down like the scene, but it's like I think that's sort of why they gave Abby kind of like this monologue in a way, not to make her seem more like evil and full of rage. Like we know why she's doing it, but I feel like they wrote the scene in a way where she's kind of talking a lot and has like this attitude to try to get the reaction out of audience. Like, man, I don't like this chick, but I don't know that it's going to play that way. Cause like Zeus said, two very different reactions from people in your own family. And I've already talked to a couple people that I personally know. And one person was like, damn, dude, she sucks. And then another person was like, I get it. So I don't think it's going for the reaction that maybe they necessarily want.
And maybe we don't know, because maybe they actually are trying to make her be more sympathetic now. Maybe that's the intended goal. We don't really know, which again, we could argue if that's the right choice. Yeah. But if they are saying that, maybe they do want us to feel more sympathy towards her, I feel like that kind of goes against the purpose of the story and something that Neil has talked about and I've talked about a lot in the beginning. But it's at the end of the day, it's an adaptation. It's a different medium, and they're not, as of yet, jumping the shark for me. It's just, as Austin was saying, it's something to be wary of, something to say, okay, let's see what happens here.
Well, it's the deck of cards analogy, or the house of cards analogy that he used last week. Where it's like,
that's true.
Abby's father, that's a card out of the deck.
Right. How many more cards can be removed now?
Right.
So it's that definitely. I don't know, Austin, how many you would say, but a few cards have been removed.
I was really trying my hardest not to say that again. Blow smoke up my own ass.
I had to bring it up. I had to give it to you. Because I was thinking it in the whole episode. I was like, the house of cards.
That's the legacy of the Yap of Us, is that Austin's house of cards. I love it. Phil. I was going to answer your question after we finish that discussion, but Psycho did for you. Austin has the NECA right behind him.
Yeah,
And,
I do actually.
Yeah.
Oh my
Can
gosh,
I,
let me just kick everything over. I know this ain't
Oh.
a figure show, but I'll kind of showcase it off real quick.
Shit,
They're really solid.
I don't
Is
know
that
how
I've
to
been
make
thinking about
someone-
picking those up.
There we
I
go.
don't know.
That's how I make you big. There you go.
I want
That's the
those.
NECA thingy.
Yeah, Ellie. Old
The
Penny.
Ellie NECA, her eyes looked a little like kind of buggy in the photos. How do they look in person?
Her face is pretty terrible.
Okay.
But it's
Some
like,
of those older NECAs are like that.
Yeah.
but like right here, like that looks pretty solid. Right
Mhm.
there, it looks pretty solid. You know, the
does look
profile's
good,
pretty good, but
Mhm.
yeah, the
Nice.
straight on is 100-yard gaze.
Stare.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I only
sure.
have the Spin Master ones from the first game.
Bro,
Joel-
Spin Master needs to get on it, man.
That's great.
Joel is even worse.
Oh no.
Oh
I hate
no.
to say it, but the sculpt is there. I did a photo shoot with him the other day, and
Great shots.
Oh, that looks cool.
but the light hit him really well. But yeah, it comes with a bunch of like really cool accessories and alt hands and weapons and stuff. They're
I'm-
really good.
I'm gonna be honest.
Nice.
As someone who is a big fan
Like
of
the wood
NECA,
grain on this is pretty solid.
yes, that is
Oh
very-
yeah.
as someone who is a big fan of NECA, I like the Spin Master figures more. I just think that they
They were just
articulate-
on sale like at Target.
Yeah,
one day.
yeah.
I was like, fuck, $30. Hell yeah, let's go.
yeah. Oh, $30, man. That's a
Nice.
great deal.
Yeah.
But I think the Spin Master, they articulate more, which, you know me, that's not a huge selling point for me, but it is something I do take note of. And I just like how they look and how they feel more than the NECA. The NECA, NECA figures always prioritize sculpt over articulation, but I feel like the Last of Us figures are almost to the point where they don't pose well at all. But, you know, then if you have someone who knows what they're doing, like Austin, you get some good stuff out of
Dude,
it.
that Spin Master's ab crunch on Ellie kills me, man. I need
It- I
It's
will
something.
say it
man.
looks better in person. You could
Okay.
ask Psycho because
Okay.
when he saw it in person, he was like, "It's not as bad."
I need
you
him
can put the,
to.
you can put the gun in our hands in front of it too. So you can-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, coffee. Thank you for stopping by.
Bro. Tony Stark, man.
Crazy, bro.
He built this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Phil, unfortunately,
I
they do not make
wish.
clicker figures, but they do have a nice clicker statue by Dark Horse.
Hey,
I'd build out
Funko
a
Pop
nice
too.
clicker army. Yeah. Would you army build the clickers, Zoo, or?
I would.
I would not army build, no. But I would
I'd
if
get-
they put different versions though. I would totally buy different. Because you got to think also. I know people get over this, but for me specifically, especially when it's not a trooper like a stormtrooper,
Yeah.
a clicker looks like it is an individual person. So
Mhm.
what you army build them, they all look the same. It's like that's not in universe or even in the game. Just
Yeah.
from our perspective, they all look different. So Psycho, yes, they are. They are still in that post. I like your post.
Do you want to kind of hop into like directly after she wakes up? from
Yes,
the
that's what I was
nightmare?
going to say. Right. So afterwards, from the nightmare sequence, Abby wakes up, and there's a lot of dialogue from the game that's cut, and I don't want to really talk about specifically what was cut because
Right.
there's a lot of reveals that we do get in the game that we did not get in the show. Some
Mhm.
things we don't know about character relationships, character dynamics, what other characters are doing, all of that stuff, which would have been here, is cut. And I found that a very interesting choice because before the show came out, I read a review that said that Abby's friends were severely underdeveloped this season. And I read that and I was like, oh, yeah, of course they would be. It's not till next season where you would find development in them.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's even more so. They are not characters as of yet. They are plot devices. And I would assume it's got to be an intentional choice of not wanting to reveal stuff about them because I'm sure you guys know, but there's something very important about a specific character that
Yes.
was not talked about. So it is interesting that they're not revealing that.
Yeah,
stuff.
like they're withholding that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but they're
Right.
not withholding. Yeah,
I-
it's interesting.
I don't know about you all, but maybe it's just me, but I guess I kind of thought we would see a lot of these same scenes again later on from the other point of view, like we do in the game a lot, and we would kind of fill in the gaps, so to speak. Maybe
Mhm.
they'd give us a little
Yeah.
bit, and then they'd come back through next season and give us some more to finish it up. And
I think,
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
Austin said last episode, when they filmed the opening of the season when they filmed the previous season, it shows that they are willing to do that. So I would assume
we
they
will.
probably have done that a few times this season. That would make a lot of sense. But yeah, see, what's cool, Hunter, for me, what I always liked is that the fungus in The Last of Us, cordyceps, is a real thing. It just has not and will not transfer to humans. But there's a nice there's a nice what is it? Something, I forget what it's on, maybe a BBC Earth documentary, something where it's ants,
Mhm.
cordyceps infecting ants, and it's really, you can look it up on YouTube. You just Google like cordyceps ants.
And I
And
wouldn't say that
it's
they
pretty
become like
interesting.
hyper intelligent by any means. Like they're not like making like battle plans or
nothing
anything.
crazy.
Right.
But like the stalker is kind of like as intelligent as it really kind of gets. Just kind of
Yeah.
But honestly, that's just kind of in the game to like give you a different enemy type to
Yeah,
fight. So
right.
I do like how they kind of expanded on that in the show. They're like, oh, it's just kind of different.
Which, I guess with the tendrils and everything being connected, I guess, maybe they could develop one that's more smart, like smarter than a stalker. But yeah,
I'm
I don't
sure
know how that would play out.
I'm sure they won't, because for the most part, the infected are not the point of The Last of Us.
They're not.
But I would hate to see something like the early Walking Dead or the later season Walking Dead, where they're actively smart, climbing and I don't want to.
Oh, we're gonna climb the roof.
Using rocks to open
Yes,
things.
I don't want to see that. I know, Hunter, you're good. You're good, bro. I do want to ask you, Hunter, when you say you're caught up, is that including the 2 episodes from season 2? Because I just want to make sure that it's not just season 1. But
I really wanted to shout out the location for this episode too. Kind of, we get it a little bit in this scene with Abby. After she wakes up, but like the mountain, it's just
Yes.
absolutely
Oh.
gorgeous.
amazing. Yeah. I was reading in between the 2 episodes. So, okay, Hunter,
Sweet.
I'm glad. But these 2 between these 2 episodes, I was reading about Jackson and found out that Harrison Ford and Sandra Bullock both live there and have lived there for a long time. Harrison Ford has
Crazy.
lived in Jackson since the 1980s. He has a
Wow.
ranch. And I did not know that. And I was just looking, and it's noted as one of the most beautiful places in the country because, like Austin's saying, the mountains.
No, it's just absolutely stunning. Because
I actually don't think they filmed this in Jackson.
No.
Right.
But it's still like that. It's trying to get the same atmosphere.
It's a little thing, but I like how you can see how, like, you can tell that they're cold as hell.
Yeah.
Like, when they're outside.
yes.
You know,
You can, like, yeah, he's cold right now, bro.
Right. Talking about this scene, we can see how they're stunned. They're like, oh shit, in the dark, we didn't realize this is a city,
Mhm.
and again, bringing it back to show discussion, you see how different Abby is again. That everybody is like shocked by this. She's like, I don't care. We'll find a way. It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't change anything.
And
that's interesting. That was a change from the game because in the game it was just Owen and Abby that reacted
Right.
to Jackson.
And I like that when she leaves, that Manny says, you don't really have a plan, do you? And Owen says, I do have a plan. The plan is to convince Abby to leave because the only people that are going to die if we stay here are us. And I like that because, again, it shows that they're really here for Abby. They're not really here for Joel. Abby is the only one here for Joel. Without Abby, they would not have traveled all the way to Jackson.
No.
So you could make the argument that Abby is, extreme, of course, but it's more than that. It's the way Caitlin Dever plays her, which I have to give, like I gave immense props to Isabella Merced last episode. I will give Caitlin Dever amazing props this episode because I'm interested when we get to the meet, Austin, to hear more about what you think, because she has taken all of my worries for Abby and thrown them away. Of course, she does not look physically like Abby from the game, but that doesn't bother me at all anymore because she has that intensity and that rage that Abby needed. And I think Caitlin Dever is a fantastic actor, and she's playing it very, very well. So it's something that, I'm okay with a physical change to have that the actor's, ability to act like that.
And that's why I was saying, like, her scenes later are a little bit more like written out and drawn out, because I feel like they're trying to kind of build that attitude,
right,
instead of like more scared of what she has to say than like physically how imposing she would be in the game, which is interesting.
Do any of you guys have anything more to say about Abby before we get to Ellie and Jesse?
Not necessarily Abby in the scene.
Just that scene.
Yeah. I think you said you read somewhere that people were saying that her like group wasn't as fleshed out this season. I kind of want to push back on that. Especially because you brought up like Owen's line about I'm trying to get her out of here. I felt like they gave them a little bit more agency than they did in the game. I like that we spent a little bit of time with just them with Abby removed, because we got to see, like you said, they're really just there for her. They're not there for Joel. And I like that they all have a little bit more hesitancy.
Yes, for sure.
In the game.
Throughout the whole episode, not even just this scene.
Yeah. But it was another one of those times where I sat there and kind of compared it to the game, because I restarted playing it, and in this scene when Abby wakes up in the subtitle, she's credited as woman, and Owen is credited as man. And I think that's kind of just harkening back to all that shit I was saying earlier about less is more. But I just thought that was an interesting change, and obviously what you said about the withholding of other details. Yeah, I think that's kind of the last of my thoughts there, but I did like having a little beat with just the group without Abby.
I did not expect that, and that was something that they did. It just gave them more character, and it makes sense because
this is like the opportunity of television.
Right,
I don't have to
That's
play something right now. I can spend times with tertiary characters and have them have a little moment.
And also, all other than Owen, which I think the actor's name is Spencer. I'm sorry.
Why is he hot? Why'd they make Owen hot?
Okay, here's my, again, I'm maybe he didn't want to, maybe he couldn't with filming, because for people who don't know, Pedro Pascal and Isabella Merced are very busy right now. They're filming so many different things. Well, at the time of this was filming superhero movies, both of them with Superman and Fantastic Four. A lot of filming was around both of their schedules. So I would understand if there are things like that. But I thought it was interesting how Caitlin Dever and Tati Gabrielle, I thought that because they changed their hairstyle and just other things about them, they did look visibly older now, as opposed to the opening scene of the season 5 years prior. But Owen looked exactly the same. And I thought it was pretty funny. I almost wish that they made him be clean shaven in the opening scene, because I thought it so then he would look a little older now with a beard.
Okay. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's something that happens all the time in movies, television, whatever. I could suspend my disbelief, and especially in the nightmare scene, I do think that Caitlin Dever looks visibly and acts visibly younger when she's playing.
The way she holds herself,
yeah,
a little bit more closed.
Right.
Her body language was.
I gotta say, it's really funny that Tati Gabrielle is bald because she's bald in the next Naughty Dog game.
Yes.
So just how she looks in the next game they're doing, which is funny.
Yeah, that's because Last of Us is a prequel to
Right.
I mean,
there we go.
Might be spitting, bro.
Yeah, but overall, I think that other than Owen, like I said, all the other actors, they're known actors. I think that Owen, like I said, his actor is named Spencer something. I forget his last name. I don't know him from anything. But the other actors I've seen around, and they're accomplished actors. Why, if you're gonna cast accomplished actors to do these right now just smaller roles, it would make sense to give them a little more meat on the bone.
Something.
So I like, exactly like Austin said, that they have some
Black Mirror. Actually, the new season. I haven't watched it. It was Mrs. Fungus. She was sitting there. She goes, "Oh, she's in Black Mirror."
Ooh,
that's crazy.
Mel, right?
I'll have to go back and look, because I've seen all that.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it's just Owen, but I thought he did a good job, especially because Owen is probably the one who's given the most meat so far, besides Abby, of course.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see, and going forward, hopefully we'll see more of that. I'm sure they'll expand, as the show does, because even in some of the changes that we'll talk about tonight, a lot of it is expanding upon, and the show has always done that from the beginning of season 1. So usually I like the expansions, so hopefully we'll see more of that going forward with the Salt Lake crew. But anyone have anything else to say about Abby and that whole scene before we get
I didn't have anything other than I liked how hesitant they were versus the game. I noticed that pretty quickly, but nothing.
Yeah, in the game it's more nuanced later. Like you kind of realize that a lot of them weren't really okay with everything that was happening. And when you go back and play the game, you can definitely see it, especially like on Mel's face and stuff, that they're not really comfortable. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad change of kind of that being.
Yes, I think that's good. I enjoy it.
Because I think I've noticed over the years when people talk about the game, I think that's something that is kind of misunderstood. Like people don't really get that they don't really want to be doing what they're doing, even though I think if you play the game it's clear as day, but a lot of people do not pick up on that. So
a lot of people who don't like the game also haven't played the game, so
right. So I think
don't like that game,
even though we don't like some things being so more talky and expanded upon. I think this is generally fine.
Yeah,
agreed. So then the next scene we get is actually the opening of the game, besides a little Joel and Tommy scene that I didn't want to talk about because we still don't know. I'm not 100% convinced we won't get that going forward. Maybe. We'll see. But the true opening of the game is Jesse knocking on Ellie's door. And that's the scene that we get next. So it took an episode and a few minutes after, but finally now all the show original stuff, minus, the dance and the supermarket scene that was moved out of order. Now we get up to where the game is. So you have Jesse knock on the door, talking about the night before, and it's something that doesn't matter much, but I really enjoyed it's kind of fucked up you did that line.
Yeah.
I love that line. I love that line in the game. Just shows Jesse's jokey attitude and lightheartedness, and I that wasn't a line where I felt like they needed to include, but when they did, I was like, okay, I'm really happy with that. I enjoyed that
because they've still accomplished his sense of humor, in the last episode, and these people look up to you for some fucking reason, they have done it others, but I feel you.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a little. It's a little treat for us real fans.
Bingo.
Yeah. But what's more interesting to me than that little scene is the following part of it, which is Ellie and Jesse are walking to the diner just to meet Seth, and Ellie says, "No offense, but I'll just do my patrol with Joel." And Jesse says, "Yes, offense," because he's the only person that you're avoiding. And I really like how Ellie, the show is making you see that maybe not everything is as it seems with Ellie and Joel's relationship. And like Austin, I started replaying the game, and I forgot.
Yeah,
Even though
same.
I played the game earlier in I played it little over a year ago. I played it in January of 24, and that was like the third time I played it. But I forget that in the beginning of the game, you actually don't really see Ellie and Joel's relationship
Not at all.
deteriorate.
You just get
So-
what her and Dina talk about a little
Right. There, so all of that stuff is later on. So when the show, we already have, especially for show only viewers, you only see, damn, Ellie and Joel have a shitty relationship right now. That kind of sucks. So I like that at the beginning of this episode, when Ellie has this conversation with Jesse, she says, I wrote it down, unlike last week where I was fucking up quotes. I wrote down the specific quotes so I don't butcher them. But Ellie says, I'm still me, he's still Joel. Nothing is ever going to change that. And I like that because, again, I'm repeating myself, but it shows that not everything is as it seems. And that maybe the horrible relationship that they have is not 100% awful. There's clearly strain there. It's not like they're buddy,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Something happened.
Right.
I like this part specifically because for someone like my dad who was just completely
Yeah,
pissed and
For
dogging Ellie all episode 1, this gave him a chance to kind of like, oh, okay, they're just kind of going through a little fight right now,
right.
and got him
She doesn't-
back on.
She doesn't
Yeah.
hate him, but they have
she's
issues.
just like, oh, okay, they'll be fine when they go out there because he's like, oh, they're gonna go
Right.
out there and do their thing and be fine.
And this is a
And I was like, yeah, sure.
Bum, ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum.
It was definitely a curve moment for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a criticism that I've seen people say. It's something that's never bothered me either way, but so I'm interested to see how you guys feel about it. But some people do like, and some people don't like, when Ellie and Joel flat out talk about, their being a parent and child to each other. So I saw people criticize that last episode where Joel was talking to Dina and he said that, I know that she's 19 and I'm, a parent, whatever I am, and then he says the same thing to Gail, 19-year-old daughter, stuff like that. Because obviously, from a biological perspective, Ellie's not Joel's daughter, but I don't think that matters because functionally speaking, it's a daddy-daughter relationship, as Ellie specifically says in this scene, which she
might as well be
says,
adopted too.
"Yeah, we'll go patrol like daddy-daughter day," is what she
Yep.
says. And
Really, really liked that line.
right,
Yeah, I thought
I
that was
also
great.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think I like when they show that that is what they are. Even it doesn't have to be left unsaid. Some people like when it's left unsaid. But for me, I thought this specific quote from this episode and the same quote from last episode that I just brought up, I feel like it does add a little nuance to their relationship where, like Dr. Forgon said, even when there's an issue, that at the end of the day, they're still family.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily think like the daddy-daughter relationship part of the relationship even has to be nuanced. Like it makes sense in universe for this character to address that relationship like that because they have spent 5 years together, living in the same house. They've gone through this emotional thing. Like they are very much aware of like what their relationship is,
It would
as
be
we
kinda-
are.
It would just be strange if it was still like, there's just somebody that I was escorting across the country.
Yeah, I'm just his cargo.
Yeah.
It's still weird if it was still that way. Like,
Right. And it's also something where, quote, great quote, line from the game and in the show where in season 1, Ellie says, everyone that I've ever cared about has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. And again, showing that there is clearly deep caring and love there. Obviously, otherwise Joel wouldn't have done what he did at the end of season 1. So of course, I agree with Austin 100%. I don't think it needs to be nuanced. I do see what people say that they want it to be nuanced, but it's also okay for Joel and Ellie to express their love for each other. That's fine. We could see that. It's fine.
I think in a story like this where they're like changing a little bit here and there, I think it's fine. You know, like
yeah, for sure. And especially because of that, of the placement of this scene or of that line, that it's in this scene where Ellie is reaffirming to Jesse that we're okay. And it's something that I'm very glad that I'm replaying the game right now, because I did not remember this and would have completely slipped my mind. But in a similar scene in the game during this time, Ellie is talking to Maria, and Maria says, you know, I don't know what's going on with you and Joel. And Ellie's like, we're fine. It's all good. And you don't really know, is Ellie just saying, you know, we're fine as in don't
like
talk about it?
Off.
Right. Or are they actually fine? And you don't really know the answer to that now. Obviously, you find out later on. But it adds more nuance in that respect, especially because maybe Ellie doesn't even know 100%. Because if you ever, I'm sure we all have, we've argued with people that we love. You could really hate them in that moment, but at the end of the day, you still
got to make up with them,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So it's we're fine. You know, I'm still fucking pissed at you, but I'm not you know, wishing death upon you or something extreme. So okay. So Hunter, this was something that the infection in the water pipes is what caused the infected to attack. Because if you remember from season 1, the tendrils, and this is a show established thing, it wasn't in the game. The tendrils, they communicate with each other. So once they were exposed into Jackson, they communicated to the Horde, and that's why the Horde attacked. But then, again, because of the way this episode is structured, I'm going to go through the whole Ellie and Jesse scenes. But then we see the Seth scene. And, of course, Seth... no one likes Seth, as we said last week's episode. But there was one particular line that I really liked, because it's something that I felt watching the scene for the show. I felt playing the game, and I've even felt in examples in real life where I've experienced things like this, where Ellie says, yeah, people get drunk and say awful shit they never thought before. And I really liked that because, of course, yes, Seth was drunk. But I don't know about you guys, but I don't think if I get drunk, I turn into a bigot. That's
right.
I mean, I don't.
That's not what happens. So
yeah.
And then I like when he was like, I shouldn't have even thought it. It's like, yeah, correct.
yeah, right.
Got it.
You're almost there.
Right, exactly. And yes, this is something I had in my notes. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't have that line. Now, I saw an argument where someone said that in 2003, that's when the apocalypse, you know, outbreak day happened in the show, that they would never say that because people already criticized that in 2013 that it would have been in the game that people wouldn't say that. That's a very 2020 line of dialogue people said. So maybe they didn't want to do that. I just hope that it's something like that and not something that, again, Austin specifically has brought up a few times, which is an overcorrection, because that is a line that a lot of people did not like. And I should specify that, actually. A lot of people who did not like the game did not like. I actually liked that line. I thought it was very funny. I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't in the show. but that it wasn't also necessary. You know, it's still the point of the scene. Everything was there. It's just they removed that one line. So it doesn't bother me, but I am kind of bummed that it didn't happen. Which I apologize in advance for any show only viewers who are watching this, because I do feel so far a lot of this episode has been a bunch of people play the game whining and saying, "Why wasn't it like the game?"
It wasn't like the game.
Wrap in.
Yeah, you got a lot more coming, I think.
Yeah.
There is like a show only thing that happened like right before that with Tommy. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all.
I was actually wondering if I should write something down for that, because I have nothing to say about that. But if you do, sure, go ahead.
I did think it was a very clean. I love like a good heist movie, you know. And the rules to a heist is setting up, you know, places, objects, people, all of the rules, you know. And kind of what Tommy did in that scene was very, very good rule. It's like script rule following. He set up like the bells, basements, and cellars. Everyone go up if we do all this in a horde. So I thought that was a very clean and concise setup. At the beginning of this episode, kind of segue real quick, Zooboy, you compared this to the Red Wedding and the Battle of the Bastards. Honestly, in my head, I kept thinking of The Long Night.
Okay.
I think it had to do with all of the snow and obviously zombies.
Right.
But I felt, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I felt a little bit of this episode was maybe an overcorrection for that show. You know, maybe someone at HBO's studio was
very
like,
brightly lit as opposed to very
like
dark.
there's a lot of very interesting choices. But yeah, I wanted to give that positive to the scene, and I really liked that Jackson feels more like a family than just like a town of strangers. Someone fucking name dropping Earl. Like, don't be Earl. Don't shoot yourself in the leg. Safety's on. But I think it's very, very convenient that we're having this town plan moments before a horde actually comes. I understand it's television and we're setting up for something to happen later, but it was very distracting when I rewatched the episode. I was like, this is kind of what are the fucking odds? You know?
And they also like give everything away from the, like, you know what to expect with the horde. He's like, make sure you go to the roof. They can't get you up there. Make sure you do this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, all this is not going to matter.
I also do think that I was waiting for it to be revealed or something that they knew the horde was coming and they were disguising it as a drill, but it wasn't. So I did
they think that it was because they found the bodies under the ice or whatever? I know there was a line about that at some point.
I think they try to steer you that way, but like I don't think they did a good job convincing you that they were worried. It's like, they might be hiding more bodies down there, but we don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I guess you could make the argument, like Tyler is saying, that, you know, they saw it and they're just being a little more cautious, preparing more, and they're disguising it more so as a drill. Because, like you said, they do call attention to that in the episode. But it did feel very contrived. And I think that...
But then they're also just going about their daily lives too, like later on.
Right, like Jesse and Ellie leave to go on patrol still, you know.
Guys busting up water pipes and just like, okay, maybe, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a good point. But then, do I want to talk about this right now or later? I think we could talk about this now, because in the game, the two patrols that are going out are Joel and Tommy and Ellie and Dina. And they changed that for the show. For the show, it's Ellie and Jesse and Joel and Dina. And I think it's a good change. I think that The only thing for me that we're really robbed of is a great scene with Ellie and Dina from the game. However, I would not be so sure that we're not going to get that scene. I'm pretty. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I'd bet some money that we were going to see that later in the season. I think that scene builds a lot of character for Ellie and Dina, and I don't think they would cut it, just shift it down the line. Do you guys agree?
I'll go last.
I think we're going to get scenes of them together later, but I don't think it'll be presented the same way. Because in the game, obviously, we're talking about Dina and Ellie find Eugene's room with all the weed.
Yes.
And
But it won't be the weed element, because we did get that.
Right. And it leads to them, like, you know, kind of joking around, looking at all of it. And then obviously, like, a very romantic scene.
Mm-hmm.
I still think we'll have romantic scenes with them, but obviously not with, you know, the cutesy
Weed.
sort of like weed element. But then that's the thing. It's a very iconic scene in the game, you know, before everything kind of goes haywire. So
I do think, though, the specific lines, again, I don't want to spoil for show only people, because I do think we will get this. Those specific lines, I do think we will get. It's just, I think some of them are just too important for their building relationship.
it just sort of felt like, then why even do it with Jesse? You know, why even really have that? It's to build character into Eugene. That's why they're doing it, because clearly we know Eugene at some point we're going to see him. He's cast, so that's probably why they're putting it there. It just feels a little sort of forced in there because it doesn't really relate to Jesse or Ellie.
I think that it's more so getting Joel and Dina to be paired up. That's the more important part. So it's then, well, who do we pair Ellie with? And Jesse is just by default because they want to have Tommy in Jackson for this big horde attack. So I think it's not necessarily just, oh, we're going to pair Ellie and Jesse for this specific reason. It's more like that's who's left. At least that's how I took it.
You can go, Jacob, and then I'll go after you.
I think T-Mac made a good point that we may see it eventually down the road, but I'm just really trying to rack my brain as to where, because I think after they get to Seattle, it's just going to go 0 to 100, and they're going to be having encounter after encounter. So I do think that it is important to some of the dialogue that they have during that, but I could also see the way they're changing stuff up that they might not even include it at all. So I'm wondering, you know, how are we going to see Dina and Ellie's relationship really fleshed out in that aspect, that romantic kind of sense, which really does hold weight in for the future of the story. So,
yeah, maybe like if in like the theater or something. But
that's what I'm thinking.
I guess my overall thing is, I know they want to establish Joel and Dina more, but I kind of wish they would have kept the pairings the same, to be honest with you.
I think the Joel and Dina of it all, they did enough in the first episode.
I do too.
But they didn't really need to do it in the second episode. That's how I was left feeling.
I wish they would have kept Tommy with him. And this is the problem that I have. Like, I like the Horde. It was cool, and I like seeing it. It was filler nonsense, honestly, at the end of the day. And I hate that they did that just to get Tommy away from going with Joel. Like, I think that was the only reason they did it for, which I kind of hate. Because then, like, you know, I had to tell my dad, like, why wasn't Tommy there? And I'm like, well, you know, he
don't know.
He was supposed to be. So,
well, there's something to be said about, like, how Tommy will feel. Because think about it, right? He wasn't there to defend his brother, but he's there defending his wife. You know what I mean? And it does create sort of like an interesting it'll create tension between him and Maria and him eventually leaving because he feels guilty for not being there for Joel. So
and I think
it creates a different dynamic, but it's like,
exactly.
It's just a question
That's
of,
what I was going to say.
Did you need to do it? But I really think they just wanted to build more into Jackson. And
before
and I just think, I know, like, we all really like the stuff with Ellie and Dina, and we don't know if we're going to get that specific kind of stuff. And I feel like if they would have just left it alone, we could have got all that. We could have got Tommy and them, and we would have been fine, honestly. And then, like, why not just leave Jesse?
You could have Jesse in the town.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because
because
they even allude
Yeah.
to there's a line where Ellie says like, "I know you're going to take over the town eventually." Like she
Exactly.
has
Yeah.
that, so it's like you could have just left Jesse there, like
Mm-hmm.
we could have got to
Find
the
out
same
later.
thing they want to get to, the way they did it in the game with like some different. I don't know. I agree with Austin. I think we're going to be a little. It's
I
not
think-
like the
I think
game
it-
here
I
tonight.
think
don't
it's
mean to
really.
bring the vibes down. I swear. I'm just.
I really
caution.
think it's just to create friction between Tommy and Maria.
And you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think that's
And,
I think
For
that's
sure
what it
it
is.
and
I
different strokes for different folks, and hopefully it all turns out well. Which they didn't let me down in season 1, and I don't think they will yet. We
Right.
don't know yet, but I don't know.
Bef-
I liked it better in the game. I'll just say that.
before you go, Austin, I just want to say that there are portions of the game where Ellie is alone. I do not think they will do that for television. I just don't think that a lot of it is very gameplay heavy, and I just don't think that they would separate Bella Ramsey from the entire cast for a
Anybody.
long period of time. So I think that they will, someone will be with her. So if it is Dina, I think that's where we'll get these missing scenes. It just makes sense to me to, that way they don't even, I mean, of course they're writing the scenes, but they could just pull from scenes that they weren't able to show. So I will say right now, if I'm wrong and this, what I believe to be a very important scene, is not in the show, I'll be pretty pissed in hindsight. But
Right.
I do believe that they will show this. I think
We
it's
still have
too
5
important
more
to leave out.
episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's too important to leave out.
I agree with you that she's not going to be alone on screen without anybody. So, like, I agree with that for sure. But
And
don't
she
know.
isn't really. Sorry, Foregone. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it. That was it.
Up until the aquarium, she's pretty much with Dina or Jesse, except for the Hillcrest segment where she is in that kind of in between space until she finds Jesse.
Yeah. Sure.
So, but after that, then what she does, that little mission she goes on to the aquarium is freaking, oh man. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there are segments where she does need to be alone, Zoo, like you were saying, and I think they'll accomplish that. But it's not going to just be like Ellie by herself, because that kind of kills momentum. I think.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. So
Yeah,
Sure. I could
it's a
see
good
that.
good point.
Real quick, I want to say hello, Duck. What's up?
Doug.
And I don't think you went too far, but I just want to be careful, Jacob.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
don't. No.
I'm getting
You
ahead of
didn't go too
myself.
far, but I just want to make sure that we don't give
I
away
think
too much.
Jacob was vague enough.
Just-
You know.
okay,
that-
yeah, just
Details,
fine.
but,
Thank you for
just
the reminder.
just in case, but I don't want to go too far
Tread
into
lightly.
game. Yeah. But okay, the floor is yours now, Austin.
I feel a lot less bad about. I was like, man, I don't know. I feel like I'm about to be like super Mr. Negative over here, but honestly, I think everyone kind of hit. Tyler hit a point. Jacob hit a point. Dr. Foregone, y'all hit a point. I am not a huge fan of this change with the patrol. I really, really liked what you were saying, Jacob, about the romance stealing away. We lost a very pivotal scene here. And what Tyler was kind of saying, I really don't see that scene being recreated in Seattle because of where it is positioned in this story, in the game. Disaster hasn't struck yet. Ellie can let her guard down. She cannot do that now. It is like was it you, Jacob, that said 0 to 100, like it is. Yeah. And this is the 0, right? Like
Yeah.
this is as easy as the next several days are going to be for these characters, and this is how easy it's going to be. Like I really I'm another checkpoint in that worrisome column, I don't, if we do get the scene, so I'm trying to dart around, what the scene is. just so I don't accidentally spoil it. It's scary. I really, like Dr. Forgon was saying, Tommy should have been the one out there. I liked Tyler bringing up, they did make a point in the Eugene stash scene to address that Jesse's going to be the leader of Jackson one day. I think, honestly, it would have been better. You could have had your cake and eaten it too. You could have had this huge horde scene, and then you could have had time to flesh out Jesse
and build
in this
more
scene. Yes,
character with
exactly.
him.
Especially for later down the line, the more time we spend with that specific character. And I still think if Tommy goes out with Joel, it would still create that friction with Maria and maybe Tommy's motivations moving forward, because now Jackson is in a disastrous state. He really shouldn't be leaving, but we're going to see.
And you could also make the argument that from Maria's perspective, you weren't here when we needed you.
Yeah.
And now you're leaving again. So
exactly. What was I going to say? It does build more into Jackson, being able to have Tommy be our boots on the ground during the beginnings of this next little chunk of the episode. But I think we've done enough with Jackson. Jackson's not the point of this story. In fact, we're about to leave Jackson behind for
a while.
And like 90% of the story.
For a long time.
Right.
I think we've spent enough time there. I don't think it really needed more. I really think I don't have much more to add onto this as of yet until we get to the end of the episode, where I feel like a lot of my points with the changes of who goes out where on patrol with who they go out with won't come back into play until later.
Okay.
Last couple points I'll say real quick. When we talked about like all the characters we were excited to see more of, I said Tommy. I love Tommy. I'm glad we get to see more of Tommy. I just wish it wasn't like this, because we'll get more of him as we go on. And then, damn, I had something else now. Shit.
You wanted to talk about the gas mask bomb.
Oh, the gas mask bomb. I still like the weed thing. The weed thing was cool.
Solid Easter egg.
Yeah, solid Easter egg. The last thing I was going to say is the 0 to 100 comment is like pretty damn spot on, because immediately after, I know I keep referencing my poor old father, but like he is now expecting a certain level of stuff to happen now the rest of the way. So it's going to be hard to like take time away to kind of do moments like what we are all expecting. And then we know an entire episode is going to be a flashback. So like it's going to be that too. So I just don't know where they'll fit something like that in. We've talked about it to death, but I don't know where they'll fit it in.
I want to say two things on this. The first thing is that I'm going to push back a little bit on what Jacob and Austin are saying, just because I think there are points in the story just from the game. Again, we don't know if they'll replicate it 1-to-1, but there are points where there is a time to rest. And I think one coming up specifically is, how do I say this without a musical scene?
Sure.
Right.
There's some music, important musical scene coming.
I'm worried that the scene that we're talking about that they skipped is going to end up replacing the scene that you're talking about.
No.
And it's like, because I'm just thinking, time wise and structuring of a show, it could feel having both of those scenes, we're just reiterating kind of the same thing. Whereas if it was here before, now we have motivations for Dina more to go with her. I don't know. Sorry to.
Well, hopefully this isn't.
All right, at this point, just combine the scenes. We can't
Yeah,
lose
yeah,
either.
Well, no,
Combine them,
right.
damn it.
Hopefully this isn't
Yeah.
too spoilery for anyone on stream, but we know that scene does exist because Bella Ramsey has talked about playing that song in interviews. So it is that is happening for sure. I think that, like Dr. Forgon just said, that they can expand it and combine them, but I think they will be two separate scenes. That's the second part I was going to say is, you guys, of course, again, like me, if I'm wrong, I will join you on all this. But if they do come back and put this scene in, will all of you guys feel better about the patrol?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, I
just
think
so
my
hard to
biggest issue is
specifically
we
talk
don't
about
kind of
it,
know.
you know?
Yeah, it's hard. I
Um,
hope we're wrong. I hope you're right, Zoo.
I'm gonna in a few episodes. I'm gonna be here and say, "I told you so, guys."
Oh, I hope so. That means the worries are gone, bro.
It's
Or
just
maybe
like
I'm just naive.
It's like with moments like switching the patrols, it just feels like sometimes maybe they're thinking a little too much. Like
Yeah.
maybe they should just go straight with how it was, And
Mhm.
I don't know. I know
like-
then people would complain it's like it's too much of the same thing. Why are we doing it?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like sometimes if it's not broke,
Don't fix it.
yeah, exactly.
Don't overthink
Right.
it. Kind of.
Mhm. Yeah, Psycho. Anytime I ever see where someone's playing the game, I always try to
Yeah, I
nudge
missed
them
it my
to do
first
that.
playthrough.
Yeah, I think I did. I'm not 100% sure. I think I did, but
it's crazy that's
I played that
missable.
game so many times. It's hard
No
to remember
kidding.
what was first. But
There's certain things that should not be missable, and that
Yeah.
is
See,
one of them. That
I-
should be a hard narrative.
here's the
point.
thing.
It's almost like a warning should come on the screen and say, "Go in every building in this area."
Are you
Right.
sure you want to leave?
Right. I think for me, the whole thing is that I definitely agree with you guys, and I do think it's terrible that you could miss that. But Neil Druckmann has talked about why it's a missable scene. Is he likes the idea of an important character building scene is something that you could just stumble upon. Because if any of you guys have played Uncharted 4, there's a very important scene between Sam and Nate, two brothers, that is part of the scene is in the trailer for the game. And that is a completely missable scene. So
I'm gonna spoil half of this like crazy, groundbreaking scene that we keep talking about. Dina and Ellie, they find the stash, Eugene's stash, right? And then Dina asks Ellie to rate her kiss from the night before. And it starts off as this very playful thing. But the subtext of that scene is Dina doubling down on like trying to like iterate that she does have feelings for Ellie. It wasn't just she was high or she was drunk. It was a genuine move on her part that she does have romantic feelings for Ellie. And I'm a little torn that we missed that, and I don't think there will be a makeup for that scene, because it would be kind of weird for her to bring that up specifically. Maybe they can like blend it differently somewhere else, but it was a little sad to see her just teamed up with Jesse, and then they just don't really do much together in that scene. They just get around the fire and then they're off screen while other things are happening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
okay.
only like half of that. There's more stuff in that scene that I thought was very important that
Yeah.
setup wise we're missing.
I can
But-
understand. Maybe I'm being super optimistic and naive, but I feel like because it's so important that it's got to be important to Neil and Craig as well. So I
Mhm.
don't feel like it's something that they will just, hand wave away. But we'll see.
Yeah, like I'm just I'm just stressing that I love this game. I like this show. I'm worried. I still think it's like a good episode overall, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative or anything like that. But it is like little like changes here and there that I'm just
more cards being removed, bro.
The last thing I'll say to Austin's overall point, I still think the episode is good. Overall, as a whole, I think they built up a lot of goodwill with all of us, specifically in season 1. So they have a lot of goodwill, and I am, willing to ride it out and see what happens. Right. But like Austin's saying, it's kind of like feel like we're getting to a slippery slope. We're not on it yet, but we're kind of getting there. And I hope we come back the other way a little bit.
Mm. The pendulum has to swing in the other direction.
So, but I'm willing to reserve judgment and ride it out and see what happens because of the goodwill, because they did such a good job in season 1. So
one thing that they did keep that I was really happy that they kept and honestly gave the scene a little bit more time to breathe was Ellie finding Eugene's Firefly dog tag.
Yes, that was nice.
And she has a little bit more survivor's guilt there on her face a bit. I like
For
bringing,
sure.
Even though she has this conversation with Jesse earlier, the grief is not going to go entirely away from specific things that happened in their past with her and Joel.
Agreed. I also wanted, it's funny because I wanted to bring up this comment by Doug's, "What's The Last of Us?" And I was going to give you a real answer. And then I see this comment, though. So Doug's trolling. Drug? Okay.
Drug.
Doug has played both games, but hasn't watched the show. But yeah, I think we can get in 2 big scenes of the episode. The majority of the episode has one of these 2 scenes for the rest of it. So there's the Horde attacks Jackson. And this is something that I've been telling people that, I'm super excited about this episode because this is the episode that we know from the trailers that the Horde attacks Jackson. This is not why I was excited for the episode. That's just what I told people because for the next
100%,
thing.
100%.
So it's really cool. We've talked about that before. It's a cool scene. It's fun.
Oh, man.
There's lots of. I'm sure this was very expensive.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
And you could see it. You could see it, which I'm a big proponent of being able to see the thing.
Yes, that was great. But I do feel that I am someone who defended in season 1 when there were not many infected. I said, I don't care. That's not what I care about. I know Germania is not watching this because he wants to binge the show, but something he brought up, which is a valid criticism, is if they don't show infected, then the cure doesn't matter. The stakes doesn't matter. The amount of the danger is not really there. And I can understand that. But I do feel like maybe they overcorrected.
Yep.
However, again, like a lot of stuff I'm saying, I'm willing to reserve judgment because maybe they were like, you want infected? Here you go. Here's all the infected. And then for the rest of the season, it won't be as intense. Because if they have way more infected scenes, especially when we only have 5 episodes left with a decent amount of story to get to, I will feel like it's, a pretty big overcorrection. But right now, I could see it being just, this is the infected scene. Like last season, you had episode 5 when you saw the bloater again. So maybe this will be, again, we see another bloater. This will be the infected stuff. And then it'll take a backseat going forward. Of course, there's other infected scenes, but nothing on this scale. So to me, it doesn't really add anything to the characters, which to Austin's credit, that would make it be filler, because even something that could seem initially that it's filler, if it adds, characterization to characters, then it's not really filler. I don't feel as of this moment that the Horde scenes did that. I feel like it was just action for the sake of action, which again, cool. Action is fun. but I don't feel like it added anything. However, I will say, and again, it's kind of like what Austin said earlier, which is very hard to judge when we're game only or we're not show only people that we've played the game, because my mom and my dad both thought that Tommy or Maria could have died here. And I'm not going to lie, boys. There was a point, I'm sure we all know the point, where I was like, they wouldn't kill Tommy here, would they? And I even knowing Tommy's role going forward, I was thinking about it in my head as it was happening. I was like, what would have to happen to be rewritten if they killed off Tommy right now? So the fact that I was even thinking that, I do have to give props to the show, and because I legitimately thought minuscule chance, but I did think there was a chance that Tommy would be killed off. Which again, I would have been ranting this episode and said that was a bad choice. But
I thought they were going to kill Maria. That's what I thought.
Yes, that was the other choice. And we don't know. We see a reaction shot of Tommy and Maria at the end. We could talk about what that means at the end. We don't really know what that is reacting to. Although I don't think they did. What if little Benji died? That would kind of suck. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. But we don't know. We don't know. That could be many things. But I thought that someone important was going to die. And no one did. So, Psycho, Benji, Psycho hasn't watched the show, only played the game. So Benji is Tommy and Maria's son. During season 1, Maria was pregnant, so 5 years later, now Benji is 5 years old. Or I guess 4. 4 in a few months. But I felt like, as someone who knows what's coming, it did feel unnecessary. But I would like to hear the opinion, maybe when people watch this, someone like Justin or Zach, who hasn't played the game, if they felt like, oh, they were worried for Tommy, they were worried for Maria, worried for other people, because that could be the point, you know? It's something for show viewers to put Tommy in danger, put Maria in danger. And for us, we're like, oh no, they wouldn't do that. So we don't.
I was sitting there the whole time, like, they're not going to kill off Tommy. They're not going to.
So you didn't even think for a little bit?
No, not at all.
And then I think they reinforced that even further when he just walks down Main Street.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know how I know?
Looks
fucking none of them. They knew he was the main character. Like,
yeah, for sure. I don't know. I guess I'll just like zombies in general and stuff. So like I liked it, but again, it's a nothing. It's a nothing burger. Nothing happens. It's just
cool
to keep Tommy there. It looks good. It looks cool. I love hordes. I mentioned it in the pre-show. Shout out flamethrower. Shout out burn loaded to death.
Yes, I definitely want to talk about that scene specifically.
Yeah, and something that we didn't mention is like at the beginning. Well, I don't know if you wanted to save this for next, but like when Abby's having to crawl through the fence and all that, like I loved that. I thought that ramped up the tension a little more.
I just wish they took her being.
I know. I think that was more tension filled than what it was in the game for me. I liked it better in the show.
It was a longer sequence in the show than it was in the
especially
game.
when the one's hand is like slicing itself.
Yeah.
Open. Like I loved that.
Yeah, that was
like,
awesome.
It was getting tighter and tighter.
Or even the one that actually breaks through and starts like that was different.
I thought the when she's running down the hill and like wakes them up, I thought that was clever, seeing them all rise up. Like there's a lot of good zombie elements that I liked a lot, but again, it's nothing. It's just nothing.
Especially because
we're
at the disadvantage of knowing like what's gonna happen after this. You know, so we're us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Us 5 are sitting there,
waiting
for what this episode
main
is
Cut
part,
to Abby.
the
Cut
main
to Joel.
point.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Tommy, Maria.
That's
We don't.
exactly what I was
Yeah.
thinking. And
I think it does hit different for people that haven't played the game that are just
I'm
show
sure. I'm
viewers.
sure it does.
Right.
My
Because even
dad
my
was
sister
loving
texted
it,
me and
though.
was like, "Holy shit!" while she was watching it. So
Yeah.
it's like, and she doesn't know. So
Right. This is the one scene so far, in probably not just this season, but last season as well, where I feel it's almost unfair for us to judge because I don't think it was designed for us.
Well,
Yeah.
my pushback would be is I championed like the major changes in the first season. Like the Bill and Frank episode is
Mhm.
probably gonna be the one I point to the most. You
Of
know,
course.
that was such a dramatic change from the game that was so easy for me to become invested in.
Mhm.
Whereas here, I think that's why I'm being so hypercritical of the changes here, is because they have proven that they can make changes for the better.
Mhm.
And this one is one that felt like a change that may have been for the worst. Not even the worst. Maybe that's a little harsh, but the filler is the word that I like to use for it.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
just like cool eye candy.
I like it because, I mean, I like again, it was a bullshit.
I like
scene, but,
zombies. I like guns.
Yeah.
You know.
you know, it's very Walking Dead, and like when that show hit for me, you know. But I think it, like Zoo was saying, this is like probably the only big infected scene, and I think it does do a good job, I guess, of keeping that threat of them in the back of your mind as they go forward. I hope there aren't any more massive infected
big
scenes,
right.
Because if that is, then that makes this one even more pointless.
Mhm. I know as we know from the game, but also I feel comfortable saying because it's in the trailer. We know the subway scene that there will be infected there, of course.
And that's fine.
So
Hell
that
yeah.
that makes sense, but that's also I don't imagine that to be as big of a deal as this is. This was so many.
Mhm.
Again, I'd love to see how much money this cost because it was
Probably right
the
up there
effect-
with the dragons.
the effects looked great.
Yeah.
It was well lit as opposed
Which
to
is my favorite thing.
yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can see it. It's very
Yeah.
Peter Jackson. Nobody questions where the music come from. Don't question where the lights come from.
Right.
It's the same place.
Right. And I do think that in the specific part of the scene, which I think probably a lot of people liked, is Tommy versus the bloater. And I did, again, I know that you guys said that you know you didn't think that, but I did think there was a chance. I was like, man, they would clearly have to rewrite things going
might have
around. But
Boys, if that would have happened,
yeah, I would have been pissed. I would have been pissed, but I was like,
I've
man,
lost both of the brothers in one episode.
I'd have been like, you know what? This is not for me anymore.
right. I was just like doing the math in my head. I'm like, okay, that means this would have to change. This would have to change. Like
Right.
all while I'm watching this, I was like, man, are they really
Crazy.
gonna do it? But they
Crazy.
didn't. Of course, they didn't kill Tommy. But I think it again for someone like me who has played the game and I still feel that way. I understand why you guys didn't for sure, but I'd be interested to hear from people who haven't played the game if they felt there was a chance that Tommy would die there, because
I'll ask my dad and
yeah,
report back next
my
time, see.
my dad did not. My dad was like, "Oh, someone will save him at the last second." Didn't think that the bloater would just die from tick damage. But my mom was like, "Oh shit! Like they're gonna kill off Tommy right now. Oh my god!" So
Yeah,
I
you
can
know,
understand.
maybe as a show only person, you know, just through cultural like osmosis, people probably thought, oh, there's like a dramatic death in this episode.
right,
And so maybe, you know, for someone like your mom, it's Tommy that's going to die in this episode and Joel is removed from the brain. So,
and then
you know, that's something, you know, I can't even
Mhm.
imagine
you
put myself in.
also it must have been intentional because, to my knowledge, unless I'm mistaken, every scene of Tommy in the show, in the trailer, we've now seen. I think all the trailers only showed Tommy in Jackson.
Yeah,
So the
which is
trailer
great.
could have been leading you to be, oh man, maybe they will kill off Tommy because all the scenes have been shown. Again, I don't think your average viewer, whether they've played the game or just as a show only watcher, probably don't keep track of trailer shots like I do.
Right.
But just it is something that I noticed. So we got Joshua here saying thought Tommy was going to die, never played the game. So
What's up, Josh?
I guess that was
that
probably
is
the purpose, right? I guess.
Right.
Maybe to lead you that way.
All right. Joshua, I'm interested to hear, did you think Maria was in danger? Because again, that was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of you guys thought Maria could have died there? Or no? None of you?
No.
I did. I thought maybe they would do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought that anybody like of some importance would die there, but I wouldn't have been shocked unless it was Tommy. Like,
Not to compare it to Walking Dead, but it's like one of those things that I knew that they weren't going to die because I knew someone else was going to die in this episode, and it would have been that Negan killing like Abraham. Everyone forgets Abraham died in that same episode.
Right.
But then Glenn dies, and immediately, like,
yeah,
who the fuck is Abraham?
yeah, nobody even cares.
Yeah. I get that. I could see them wanting to avoid a double whammy. Well, of course, because they didn't do it. But yeah, it's interesting because it was a major part of this episode, but I don't really have anything else to say about this. I don't know if you guys do, but
There's
it's
not
just
much else you could say.
it was a
Like,
lot of action.
good action.
Good action, crazy scenes, but overall
Epic.
epic popcorn fluff.
Insane.
I clapped. I clapped when I saw Bloater.
I did too. I was like, hell yeah, bloater.
And there's some cool things afterwards too, like how some of the people that got bit, like there's the one guy that hands somebody a gun. To
Yeah,
kill him.
that
Like
was. I was.
there's like some
didn't
little
notice that.
details like that where it's like
Mhm.
everyone kind of just knows what's up, you know?
Oh, I got something else I'll say. What a bunch of cowards running away with flamethrowers. What a bunch of cowards.
I like Tommy in that moment where it shows like while everyone's running away, like Tommy steps up. Like
Yeah.
that's just who I really love Tommy in the show.
Dude.
I mean, I like Tommy
Yes.
in the game, but I'm gonna be honest. I think Tommy is the one character so far where I actually think I like him more in the show than the game. If I'm being honest, which is kind of crazy. I love
So
Tommy
good,
in the
man.
game,
The
but
actor's good.
yes, Gabriel
Tommy's-
Luna is just
Tommy's
he brings
good.
so much to Tommy. I really like him.
It's really crazy, like the way they sort of dress them and do their hair too. Like him and Joel do look alike. Like they
Yeah.
do. Like you look at them and I'm like, I could believe these people being brothers completely. Like
Bro's been goated since episode 1, season 1.
Yeah, exactly, Psycho. I got back into No Return, and I've been enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
I liked because obviously Ellie, like, we play as her in the game, and obviously in the game you can be murdered as that character by dogs, and we aren't going to get like one of her death scenes by a dog.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
like
so of
that
course.
we got to see one of the infected taken out by a dog, and
That
it
was
mirrored
the dog
Yes,
army
I-
was
one of
cool.
her.
I can't
That was
believe I
cool.
didn't write that down in my notes. I'm glad you brought that up. I thought that was really cool. The
Yeah.
dog scene,
Yeah.
it really showed.
Yeah, it
they
triggered
were
me.
very effective.
Dude,
That
you
was
want to
awesome.
talk about clapping? My dad clapped when the dogs came out. He was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree, Joshua.
That's the thing. There's a lot of
dogs were
cool. There's a
badass.
lot of cool things put together to make the scene. And like I do think it is there. Like us having played the game, we know Tommy's not going to die there. But I think for show viewers, it kind of fakes him out where it's like, oh, thank God he's not going to die. But then what happens
You
happens
drop your
later.
guard a little bit.
Right. I think that's kind of the purpose that they're trying to serve.
Mhm.
Yeah, I liked it. I did.
And again, it's
I have my criticisms.
right. It's the same. Maybe, people, it'll like you said, Tyler, that they drop their guard and then all of a sudden, like the next scene, now it's raising. You're like, oh my God, is this actually going to happen? Because someone brought up, and I actually saw two different people bring it up on Reddit after last week's episode where I talked about this on stream. So that was really cool to see other people have the same thought. of the Alfred Hitchcock suspense thing that I brought up, because in the game we do not know that for sure. There's little hints, but we do not know for sure in the game that Abby is there for Joel until she shotguns him in the knee. In the show, we obviously know that. So it's as soon as we see Abby, the infected are on top of her, clawing at her, Joel shoots the infected in the head. As soon as we see Joel there, my mom specifically was like, oh my God, like,
Right.
I can't. This is oh my God, this is who like she's there for. So that's something where in the game there are little hints. They say he, they don't say Joel.
Yeah.
And then when Joel, when Joel introduces himself, when Tommy introduces them in the game, Abby like looks at Joel and she has
her
a
eyes.
stunned face. So there are little hints there. And then one of my favorite lines is when Abby and Owen are talking, and Owen says, "You have no idea how lucky you are. You're very lucky," or something like that. And Abby says, "You have no idea."
Yeah.
Right before Joel introduces himself. So I do think that it's more of a dread situation, again, like I said last week. But of course, this leads us into talking about this whole scene. So we're at 90 minutes into our episode. I'm going to be very, very, very clear. We've already alluded to it a little bit, so I'm sure most people watching anyway know. But if you have not watched this episode, please go away. I do not want to spoil for you. I very much appreciate you watching. Again,
make sure to like and come back after you watch the episode.
Yes, for sure. If you've played the game, of course, you could like stay if you want. And again, but I will say, the next scene is very spoilery. So,
and I'll be right back.
All right, I'm out.
Yeah,
I don't know what else.
All right, everybody. Now you have been warned. It is time to discuss Joel's death. So, this scene was something obviously we all knew was coming, but I don't know the people that you guys watch with or talk to or interact with. Every single person that I spoke to that didn't already know was so taken aback. They did not know that it was going to happen at all. And even people that figured, oh, maybe he'll die some point later in the season, did not know what would happen now. Episode 2, that's kind of crazy for a major character death like Joel. And yet, obviously, as people who've played the game, we know. I just replayed this sequence of the game.
Oh, wow.
It took 2 hours, a little under, like an hour and 57 minutes to get to Joel's death. So it happens very early in the game. Which, again, kind of makes sense if you think about it, because each episode is roughly an hour. Happens almost at the end of this episode. 2 hours. It's kind of similar to how it happens in the game. But yes, exactly. Joshua never saw it coming. I cried.
Yeah.
Vic, how's he coming back from this? That is something I've seen a lot of people say. Even up until the point where it was of the point of no return, I've seen so many people say, how is he coming back? Who's going to save him? Right.
My dad was like, man, he's going to be fucked up the rest of the show. He's not going to be able to do anything. And then obviously at the end of it, he's like, oh, never mind. He's like, he won't even be able to walk. I was like, I know, man. He's not going to be able to walk.
Yeah, he won't. Jesus.
Yeah.
He ain't walking.
Right. Very, very true. And very, very sad.
It's still sad every time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I thought overall, before we get into it detail wise, I do think that the scene, just how it was portrayed, very well done. And I got to give credit to all the actors involved. I thought Pedro Pascal did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I thought in the end, Bella Ramsey, that's the scene where I think if people still are criticizing Bella's acting, I don't know. I don't know what
That
to
was
say.
that was what I was waiting on.
Yeah.
Was it going to deliver? I thought she did a great job doing with that.
That was definitely that was their moment. That was, if they get nominated for an Emmy, that's like, that's the thing that people will point to for sure. But of course, Caitlin Dever. I think Caitlin Dever is the scene stealer. She's the reason why Caitlin is in the thumbnail of our episode right now. This is her episode. This is her scene. She takes control. And I think that Caitlin really showed that she is the right choice for Abby. And it's something a lot of people were worried about. A lot of people who played the game, even people who haven't played the game, they have to, it's adding a new character, a new actor onto an already established ensemble cast. Obviously, less so because Joel and Ellie are like the leads, but you got the supporting characters like Tommy and Maria, of course. But she had to be very, very good, and I think she delivered. I've always liked Caitlin Dever for over a decade now. So seeing her portray a character that is really important to me was kind of surreal, to be honest. And I was a little, I don't want to say worried, because my whole thing with Dina was more worry. This was just intrigued to see how she would pull it off, because she does look very different from Game Abby. But the physicality that they traded for just raw intensity and of emotion
and control.
Sure, yes, exactly. Control. I thought that was really well done. Joshua was saying she was fantastic. And then, yes, of course, Phil, we all love Pedro, and it of course it is very emotional to see, and everyone I'm sure has different reactions to that. But I did want to say again, I've already talked about how great that Caitlin is and the full intensity of Abby. But I did see it was only a couple comments, so I don't want to. It was nowhere near as bad as the game, I think. But I did see that Caitlin is already getting a little bit of hate, and I hate to see that because,
bro, the carry technique of the rifle. Why is she holding a gun that way? You don't hold gun. I'm like, are you fucking stupid?
Yeah, bro. She's like homegirls like running in a snowstorm. Like, I don't think that's that important.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes, Joshua. I was gonna bring this up. Insane. And she was crying. That was something that was different from the game, where we see her, just really grieving over her father's death. And I think that I'm sure that was in her head. She was just at her mother's funeral, and that's what I was going to go into. I just want to touch on a little bit because I just don't think it's right, and I just want to bring it up. And I'm sure it's no one watching, and obviously none of us. But I did go on Instagram and I saw her memorial post to her mother, and I did see comments saying, you killed Joel, fuck you, and
Jesus,
it's just a shame, but those type of people just have a disconnect that, that can't be explained.
Something is broken. Something
right. Broken. Like Caitlin did not kill Joel.
The funny thing is, like, when you talk about The Last of Us, the game or the show, even if you have gripes or problems with any story choices or the way things are presented, the problem is never any of the actors or talent involved.
True.
Ever.
And we're not saying go flame Craig and Neil or anything like that, but it's just
right.
Has nothing to do.
That's kind of like my thing, though. It's like, I don't know. Like, it's their job to play a part, and it's a part that they care very deeply about, clearly. You know what I mean? It's not just... I think sometimes people get, like, lost in their world where they think, like, oh, they just shit this out. They don't care about it. They're really screwing us over. And it's like, y'all don't understand, like, how hard it is to make art like this.
That is
Be it a
something
game, be it a show, be it a film. Like, you don't get it, and you
Yeah.
probably never will, or at least don't want to,
that is something that Neil Druckmann has talked about a lot. How the thing that he was hurt by a lot is that people said that he hates Joel. He doesn't care about Joel.
Right.
And it's, are you fucking kidding me?
Bro, he's
I
trying to
love Joel. I
emasculate-
created, right?
He's trying
I
to emasculate him, bro.
of
Don't you know?
course yeah, exactly. Of course, Neil loves Joel. Neil loves Joel probably more than anybody else because he created him. It's his baby.
Yeah. One of the most
So-
ridiculous things that I've heard on the internet is that Neil created Manny to kind of resemble
Yeah, it's
The
dumb.
worst.
him, and so that he could, the whole,
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
That's just so stupid. But
stupid.
again, I didn't want to. I totally agree with this, Psycho. But I didn't want to get into it too much because again, I imagine it's not relevant to anyone watching here, and of course any of us. But it is just something I noticed, and I hope that Caitlyn is prepared. But I also hope that it's not as bad as what Laura got, because Laura got way too much. I mean, anything is too much, but I've talked about it before. I don't think I've actually said it on stream. Maybe I have, but I know I've talked about it with you guys individually. But people threatened Laura's infant child, and the actor who played Abby in the game, and it's just such a shame.
Absolutely brain broken people.
Hopefully they prepared Caitlyn that she might get hate for this, and hopefully she doesn't get too much. But that's also why I feel it's important to praise her, because I think if she did an awful job, I still would not I would not endorse people saying fucked up shit to her. But I do
We'd be
think that
talking
she did
about
a fantastic job.
performance and not
Right.
as a person.
Yes,
Cannot
exactly.
cross the line.
I think it's also important to somewhat note too, and we've talked about this privately, but before The Last of Us Part 2, the game came out, like months before, someone had hacked into Naughty
Mhm.
Dog servers and leaked the game, leaked cutscenes of the game, all, so it was all on the internet without context. I'm seeing all these things. So the character of Abby was divisive before people even got the game in their hands. And knowing what we know about the game and what we'll eventually see in the show, it's a story that you have to see all the way through. So a leak like that is incredibly damaging.
Yes, for sure.
And you could argue that because of that, some people have never even given it a chance ever.
Yeah,
It's kind of been
absolutely.
cooked from the start,
And-
unfortunately.
It's a shame because I've seen some comments where people say, "Oh, I hated the idea that Joel died. I got it spoiled for me. I gave up, and now I've played it 4 years later, and I loved it."
Right.
And it just shows that it's not the. Again, I think this is okay to say because Craig Mazin said it as in many interviews, and again there are trailers. This is not the last we see of Joel. So I think that this story is told in the order that is not so conventional. And of course, we've talked about already how they've changed some things around, reveals with Abby, but he's still in the game a decent amount. And I'm sure he'll be in the show a decent amount as well. It's just, this story cannot exist without this event. So there's no way around changing this. I've seen people say that they should change it where Joel dies in the finale. They should change it where Joel doesn't die, or maybe like Abby puts him in a coma or something. And it's like, no, this had to happen in order for everything else going forward.
He has to die. He has to die in the manner that he died in.
Right. And they do change some parts in the manner how he dies, but I was okay with that, and we'll go into that in a bit. But before we get into how he dies, I want to talk about what I imagine is the elephant in the room for a lot of show or a lot of game people, which is Abby's speech. Because in the game, Abby does not give a speech. Abby tries to give a speech, and Joel says, "Why don't you ever say whatever shit you got rehearsed and get this over with?" and Abby doesn't. And in the show, we get a similar scene. But before that, Abby does give a lot of her motivations, which again, we know, but Joel doesn't know. So that is an interesting dynamic. But I do like what the conversation that she has with Joel. There are many parts of that conversation that I wrote down here in my notes that I like because I think it adds to Abby's character and shows her obsession. So the first thing is she said this in season 1 or episode 1, my bad. And she said it again. She comments on Joel being handsome. And I've seen some people they don't like this. They're like, what does Abby want to fuck Joel? No, it's not like that. It has nothing to do with that. What it's the point is, it's this audacity that someone who has done something so evil to her that there's a positive quality.
He's not a monster. He doesn't look like a monster.
And, you know, it's that someone had to have described to Abby that Joel was handsome. And that's just, again, it's a positive quality to someone. So much of a monster is how Abby views him. And it's something that, you know, the audacity that someone would say that this inhuman being is handsome. And she goes into it more because then she recounts the amount of people that Joel has killed. And we see that it was 18 soldiers plus Abby's father. And I'm not clear if Abby was counting her, but I would assume no. So if you include Marlene, that would be 20 people. So Joel killed a lot of people that day. And I think that, again, it shows that actions have consequences, of course, as we see how Ellie is, her relationship with Joel is damaged. That is a consequence for what Joel did. But now we see a more physical consequence for what Joel did in the form of Abby. So, again, this is something that, Austin, you've touched on a bit, but they do, again, show a parallel between Ellie and Abby, which is Abby was 19 when Joel killed her father. Ellie now is also 19 when Abby takes Joel from her father, essentially. So, again, you have that parallel between their two stories. But again, in that speech, you have another thing that I wrote down, which this was probably my favorite show original line that they've had in a long time, probably since that Bill and Frank episode, because there's a lot of good stuff there, of course. But Abby says, it doesn't matter if you have a code like me or you're a lawless piece of shit like you. There are just some things everyone agrees are just fucking wrong. And you see Joel nods. He gets it. It's wrong. He understands, but it doesn't matter because it's not a choice to him. He never considered not saving Ellie. That's just what he was going to do. Just like Abby doesn't consider sparing Joel, doesn't consider going home back to Seattle. No, this is what Abby came to do, so she'll do it, despite Owen and Nora and Mel and Manny all being against it and saying, you know, this is too much. You see it cuts to their faces numerous times, and you see they're not comfortable with this. They don't want to do this. But Abby was always going to do that because that's who she is. Just like Joel. There was no decision. That's what Joel was going to do. And I really enjoyed showing both of their love for their respective characters. So Joel loves Ellie. Obviously, Abby loves her father. And the lengths that they will go for their love. Do things that we would consider morally questionable, morally reprehensible. But they are easily willing to do it without stopping and without even questioning it. So I thought that whole speech brought more detail and information to that, although I could understand what Psycho's point is here. So it's up in the air as to how someone would feel about it. But to me, I felt that it did add a lot to the scene. Although I can see why it'll be controversial. So, what did you guys think of just her whole speech and leading up to the first?
I wish we would have seen her speech next season.
Okay.
I thought it was great. I thought the speech was good. I just something we talked about earlier. I just think it's too much, I guess right now. And I wish it would have been later.
What's up, Parker?
Later on, for sure.
It sort of goes into the thing that I keep saying from before too. Like, they didn't. She's not this physically imposing person, so you have to make her like, because she's very in control in the scene. Like, because Mel's kind of hesitating to do what she's telling her to do, and she's like, "Fucking do it!" Like, and she's yelling, and then gives that speech to Joel. So it's a lot more, not necessarily like sinister, but in control of the moment. Like, it's almost as if she's rehearsed it a million times. And it, like, again, to some people watching the show that haven't played the game, I think the speech is written in a way where a lot of people could take it like, man, like, I really don't like this chick, which is good because you're playing the game. You're not supposed to like her either in that moment. Yeah. It's just in the game, it's different because she really doesn't say much. It's a very quicker scene that happens.
I don't know. I kind of think, again, I'm not a director or anything like that, but I don't know. I just feel like maybe if it would have just been Ellie coming in and you hear Abby saying it, but it's kind of muffled, and then we hear Joel like, "Shut the fuck up and do it already," or whatever he said. And that's where we come in to, or some sort of shot like that, just so we can save the speech. But
I have just more.
The speech was good though. It was good.
I have more issue with just the way the scene is presented, in the sense that, like, I hate how bright the room is.
Yep, that's one of my notes.
Because it should have been a little dark here, I think.
Because in the game, if I remember correctly, because it's in like a basement, because Ellie goes down the stairs or whatever and walks in there. And I'm thinking, like, if they filmed on some sort of location, or maybe with the plot being like, the infected were under the snow, maybe that's some reason as to why they didn't want to do it in the basement. But I don't know. There's something, like, when I saw something interesting online today that I very much agree with, is that, like, when you go back and either watch that scene or play through that scene, like, you feel like you're in hell. It's horrific. Like,
the atmosphere is just so much more intense.
And some could maybe argue, like, the Midsummer argument of, like, make it bright and maybe it's even more scary, but I don't think it worked here. I think you needed the scene to be darker. And again, maybe that's HBO being like, we've had really dark scenes before and it was really problematic, but I think you could have had the whole episode still be very bright, but have that moment be very dark,
Yeah, they still would have got the point across, I think. Like, it didn't need to be completely pitch black like fucking House of the Dragon where you can't see anything. But it also didn't have to be like Horde running across a white snow background either.
Yes, it is pretty well lit. Like, it was noticeably so.
Yeah, I mean, there's positives to the scene. I've got like just some nitpicks and like negative things as well too. So, but overall, it's just on the speech. I thought it was good. I just wish it was later.
Okay. Jacob or Austin?
Jacob can go.
I don't know if I have a whole lot to say on this one, actually. Although it didn't go down exactly like the video game did, it did take, like a couple liberties, but overall, I liked how it didn't cut away when Abby started to really hammer down on Joel with when she found the golf clubs. At least I don't think it did. It showed her straight up whacking his leg after she picked it up and his screams. So I thought that was really well executed. I thought it was interesting, Ellie coming in the way she did, with like the knife and the gun, really tactical, like close quarters combat stuff. Did she get a shot off in the video game too?
She did not. That was a change.
So I thought that was an interesting change because that totally just kind of cut the scene, in my opinion. But Bella Ramsey's performance was great. Caitlin Devers, obviously that's what we're talking about right now, was phenomenal. So yeah, I think I can hand it over to Austin.
All right, boys, strap in. Because I kind of want to back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
If that's okay. I kind of a little far. I kind of back to like the fence scene and kind of start because that's in my head. That's where the scene kind of starts.
Yes, for sure.
Because that's where she finds out his name.
And it's that the name reveal is done differently in the show than the game, and that was again something that a lot of people who didn't like the game were very critical of. That Joel would not just say his name,
right?
And in the show, it's different.
And they kept the gun coming in at the same angles and all that. So.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Actually, real quick, I think Zuboy, you said something about people critiquing how Abby was carrying her gun. Actually, somewhere in my notes, I wrote down at the very beginning.
That was Dr. Forgon, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wrote like she looks fucking tough.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning when she's like strapping around, covered in
My
snow.
favorite part is people are like, nobody holds the gun that way. Then people just reply with like soldiers from just like real people holding guns that way. Like, yeah, actually they do. What are you talking about? Like
nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I was listening to the show while I was.
She looked badass, bro.
Yeah, like I specifically wrote somewhere in here like she looks sick. She looks tough.
Yeah.
It's when she tells Joel, she's like, "Yeah, I guess you had to be pretty tough to kill all those people." Mm-hmm. Abby is clearly very tough, which I think is the point, or it's one of the points of showing her so buff in game, is to show again the stark difference between her and her friends. But we did see how, Abby is very tough for sure. This whole scene showed
even on her exterior. But also another kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying about her taking him being so handsome so personally. She was 19 when he killed all of these people, and she never actually saw him. Like, he is a monster, this larger than life thing. So she had to physically build herself up for this thing that, over the course of 5 years has probably started as an actual man, but is now like a fucking bloater of a man, like he's this other thing. And then when she comes face to face with him and he is just a guy, it's something else, but that's neither here nor there for this. I kind of wish that they had kept like the gondola scene from the game. I wanted to touch on this when we were not to harp on the Jackson attack, but in the game we have this scene where they're stuck at the gondola and they're trying to get out, and there's only maybe like a dozen infected, but that scene, for me at least, it feels so much more intense with it being less. Sometimes less is more, and it's just this desperation of, okay, slowly but surely they're getting in. Okay, 1 at a time, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, but they're trying to escape this area. And you're building up this relationship between Abby and, in the game, Joel and Tommy instead of Joel and Dina. I said I'd come back to, the routes changing. It does upset me that Tommy isn't there for this, because honestly, I think Tommy being there allows Joel to drop his guard a little bit more. I think people kind of miss that in the game. The criticism, whoa, Joel wouldn't give his name. Well, his brother is there, who he's been through this entire apocalypse with. Like, he's, in his mind, consciously or not, more safe than he's ever been because his brother's there. So he would drop his name. And Abby just helped them escape like all these fucking zombies, And then when we cut to... Oh, okay. I wanted to say I did like how they changed how she finds out about his name in the show, because it gives her a moment to... And Caitlin's performance is really solid, because you can see the shock, the internal shock of, oh my God, I've stumbled upon the fucking guy that I've been looking for. But it's like thinking on her feet. Like, she doesn't have a time to process it, and she's like, wait, I cannot play my hand here. Let's go to my friends.
Yeah, and she checks, her gun
Yep.
Mm.
You know, that's a nice little scene.
Where was I? But when we get back to the house, I was on board with the idea of Dina being there. But I think I've changed my mind on that, and I wish Tommy was the one there, because in the game and in the show, both of those characters are unconscious for it. And when you told me that Dina was going to be there, my first thought was, oh, Dina will be like an active part of that scene. It'll drive her motivations to go to Seattle with Ellie. But then they literally knock her unconscious. Well, not even literally. They just inject her.
Just
and
inject her.
Yeah.
For
and
an
Tommy's
hour specific.
Tommy is literally knocked unconscious.
I like how Abby brings it up. She's like, if you don't fucking inject her, I'm gonna knock her in the head.
Yeah, that was a nice nod. Whereas if it was Tommy, you know, he's now missing like the death of his brother. You know, I think in this episode we've specifically covered, you know, they did enough with Dina and Joel's relationship in episode 1. I kind of feel like we haven't got enough Tommy and Joel, kind of weirdly. We got them in the first episode, so 1. We got them in the Jackson episode. But, you know, we're missing the scene from the beginning of the second game. And now we're missing this scene as well. Obviously, it's implied, and they're brothers, so there is like off-screen baggage with the two characters. So I'm sure the motivation will be pretty solid, but it's just worrisome. And now, kind of getting back to what you actually asked me about, the monologue.
Mhm.
I think there's a point that I like it until, you know, I like how the game, it's just straight business. The pacing of that scene is just so much more intense. Kind of what T-Mac brought up. The atmosphere of that room is hell. It's so much more stressful to be in, and instead of this beautiful vista, you know, skyline, we got fucking beautiful mountains, and in the game the windows are literally like fogged up. It's just this blue ominous light coming through, and it's barely any light, you know. It's everyone's shrouded in darkness. There's so much commotion, you can't really tell what's going on. And I do kind of miss Joel's line for you know, just whatever fucking speech you had prepared, get it over with. Or
You know what? There's one before that too. When they first get in there, and he goes, or is it Tommy that says it? Who says like, "Y'all are looking at us like you've heard of us or something"?
yes,
Joel
yes.
says that,
Thank
yeah.
Joel
you.
says that. I love that line because it's
Yeah.
so like it's so scary because
Mhm.
it's like to
When
demonstrate.
you find
it's-
out the name, the
when they
Bruges.
reveal who they are, and then everyone's kind of like gets up, you know, like it's so scary. Like
You felt the room of buttholes clenching when you found out his name was Joel, you know? Like
Right.
there's a palpable tension in that.
Bro,
area.
that's such a good point that we lost that fucking line, man. God damn. Anyway.
I do like, though, because I know that Dr. Forgon brought it up a little earlier, but I do like that we have that line of, you know, oh, just shut the fuck up and do it already.
Yeah.
I do like it.
And
It's very Joel too.
Yes, and it's like-
good.
it's a version of the
Yeah.
of what he says in the game. But it's like they have their cake and eat it too, because Abby does have her little speech, and then she's gonna keep going, and Joel's like, "Fucking hell, just get on."
Yeah,
with
I felt Joel in that scene. I was like, okay,
Yeah. He's like, shut the fuck up. Let's just kill him. Just kill him.
that at least that was like really, really effective.
Yes, and I do feel like that's very Joel, of course. And then even afterwards, where, you know, she says iconic line from the game, and she says,
you don't get to
you
rush this.
"Yes,
Yeah.
you stupid old man, you don't get to rush this."
Exactly.
When he says that, or when Abby says that, when she says that, Joel kind of nods, and he he gets it again, just like he nods before. And this is just, obviously it's up to personal interpretation right now, and I'm not going into game spoilers, of course, but I believe that Joel, and I think this episode showed this, that if Joel, knowing how it turned out, would still do absolutely everything exactly as he did.
Yeah.
And I think that this episode, this little tiny things that they add to Joel, which again, maybe I could be reading into it a little bit more than the showrunners intended, but when I see that it cuts to Joel and he's like, yeah, I did do this fucked up thing, and yeah, these are my consequences, and you know what? So be it.
I thought the same thing too, Zoo, when it would show his face and he was just kind of like,
yep, he's like,
he
okay.
wasn't trying to protest.
Yes, he's not.
He was just like, yeah.
And
yeah,
that is
okay.
something I've seen. I've seen a lot of people. Again, I know someone like Jacob said that you didn't really look on the internet and stuff like this, but for me, I've seen the biggest criticism actually I've seen of this scene is people saying Joel should have said, well, he was trying to kill Ellie and she's immune.
Abby doesn't want to hear that.
First of all, Abby doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But also, Joel would never do that because besides the fact that it's not in character, Joel would never put Ellie at risk like that, because then all of a sudden they know that the immune girl that they heard of just rumors, they know that's true. So then that puts the hunt. That's the whole reason he killed Marlene. You know, is to make sure that this is it. He kills them, and then that they don't come after her. So if you have that there, then all of a sudden he's putting Ellie's life in danger. He would never do that. And on top of that, Joel, this code that Abby talks about, where people the argument that people will say is, you talk about your code and yet your father was willing to kill a child. It's like, I think people might forget or either choose to ignore that Joel does a lot of fucked up shit, not counting the hospital, that we see Joel talk about his backstory with Tommy. Tommy is literally fucking emotionally disturbed by what Joel did to keep them alive. So it's not like Joel was, Mr. Goody
Nice
Two
guy.
Shoes,
Yeah.
and then he made this decision at the hospital, and then it completely changed who he is. He's done fucked up shit before, so I don't think that, again, Abby's not entirely wrong, but she's also not right when she says that a lawless piece of shit like Joel, because again, a big theme of The Last of Us is that everyone is doing what they think is right to survive in this world. And really none of them are villains. None of them are heroes. That's what I love about the game and the franchise as a whole, is the nuance of all these characters that are well written. But I think that in that moment, again, as you just said, Dr. Forgon, you see how they really, I don't want to say beat you over the head, but they do show that Joel multiple times. They cut back
Being
where
beaten over the head.
right. Joel doesn't
I don't know.
protest. Joel doesn't protest. He doesn't, saying, he's just like, yep. And again, just like Harpo was saying, it's very Breaking Bad, of course. And I always like that scene in Breaking Bad. But I talking of the physical beating, I did think it was interesting they didn't cut, because they did cut in the game after that first hit. And Neil Druckmann, I think it was him, or maybe it was Craig Mazin, I don't remember. One of them said that they tried to make the, for lack of a better word, beating more realistic in the show. And I do see that, and I kind of like that, because the golf club would break. A golf club isn't that strong. And I like that it broke, just showing, again, Abby's just visceral rage. And she broke it, and she was like, you know what? Fuck it, and I'll use my hands. And that's something that I've seen people criticize again. They say, oh, she's 90 pounds. How does she have this much strength? But in that moment, she has so much adrenaline and rage, and she says the golf club broke, fuck it. And she just uses her hands, and I thought that was such a powerful scene of seeing like, oh my god, like she's not. Even Owen is like, Abby, come on now, and Abby, she. This is what Abby has been waiting for 5 years. She can't give up. So you really see the rage that Abby still has, even while she's committing this act. And then at the end of the scene, when she obviously stabs him with the broken piece of the golf club, obviously that was a little different from the game, where in the game it's, final smack to the head. But I thought initially I was like, oh, it's kind of a little bit too far from the game. But then I came back around when I rewatched it a second time, that scene, because like I said, you could hear the point where the golf club breaks. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. And it does. I see the realism there, and I like that. It's just more visceral to me.
I wish it would have been a little more.
Golf clubby.
I wish it had been a little more violent, honestly. Like, I'm not.
Yep.
I did think
I
that
wasn't
I was
satisfied enough, I guess, which sounds weird to say about somebody getting their head bashed in, but I was not.
But this is Last of Us, This is a
world. I also do think that this happens all the time, but I saw early reviews, and I even saw people who played the game, and like, game sites of reviewers who played it, where they would say this is even more brutal than the game. And I don't really see that. I understand what they're saying, in that, again, the golf club breaks and then Abby is physically hitting him. I think that's what they can mean by that.
That's fine, but also like.
But I wouldn't say it's more brutal. It's just, it's in a different way. And I do think that what's definitely not more brutal, in my opinion, is when the game cuts to Joel and you see him, he looks fucked up. Yeah. And in the show, he doesn't look as fucked up. No. And I think
that's what it is. That's
I think that was probably the biggest problem that I had with it.
In the game, when you see his body, it's to the point that, he's dead. He's gonna die.
Unrecognizable.
Whereas, like, in the show, even I guess I don't know if we want to jump ahead or not, but in the moment where he kind of tries to move, it's like there's a slight, like, he kind of like moves his hand when Ellie's like, Joel, get the fuck up. And it's like, and maybe it's just the way that they did like the makeup on his face and everything. He just doesn't look as like destroyed. Like in the game, it's like horrific how he looks. And it's not, to me, when I was looking at it, I was like, this is still horrific in a different way, but it's not as bad for some reason.
And I think half of it has to do with he's kind of overexposed in the scene.
Yeah.
Definitely.
There was a little bit more darkness and, shrouded a little bit. Worse. Your brain will kind of fill in those blanks, and that's a space that you can create anything.
I also will say I do got to disagree with you, Stu. I didn't like the stabbing in the
yeah.
I do wish it would have been the golf club to finish him off. Like,
again, I think
to finish him off.
You could make the argument again, like Austin has, of the overcorrection, because Psycho, again, I'm not going to act like I'm some sort of expert on golf.
You can break them. That's not unrealistic.
But from what I've heard people say, a common criticism that I've heard people say over the last 5 years is that if you look at Joel's head, that the golf club would have broken way before then. So people say it's not realistic for Abby to still have that. And again, who cares?
She's got a whole bag. She could have grabbed another one.
True.
Yeah, that's that kind of criticism of like, oh, future days wouldn't have been released yet.
Right. It's like that. Yes, I don't care about that level of realism, but I think the fact that it was addressed, I'm pretty sure that it was an intentional thing. Because I did read an interview with I should have talked about this before, but the director of the episode, Mark Mylod, he directed episodes of Succession and Game of Thrones, but I think he's a great director, and he does direct episodes that are very heavy like this. and he talked about how he had to balance two things, which was one, he wanted to make the scene very brutal yet realistic, but also he didn't want to make it feel like they were like yanking the viewer's chain or running away from showing certain things. Because he said originally they didn't show the final hit on Joel and they didn't show the first hit on Joel, and they cut to Abby's reaction and Ellie's reaction. But he said that it felt like when he watched that back that it was like they were afraid to show it, and he didn't want that to be the case. So he said it was important that they did show the final hits. And I do think that was a good choice that we did see the final hits. I think that was important. But I could understand how the realism aspect would bother some people, but also, as we've discussed before about Future Days and other stuff, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. When I was watching that scene in the game, I wasn't like, oh man, the golf club would have broken right now. What the hell? Like that's not something I thought.
My overall, I guess, point, like, it's been a running theme. Like, I just don't want to keep stacking little minor over corrections, you know?
Yes.
And this is definitely one I think that is because of that. It's like, so like even if it breaks, if we see her walk over and grab another golf club, like, who's going to stop her? Right. Nobody's going to stop her from coming back with a fucking 9-iron at this time.
Yeah.
Like, nope.
She
could have got another one.
It's just a matter of like being like, we all love the game story so much, and we've been like obviously defenders and champions of it for 5 years. So when they make little changes, it's hard. It's not that it's even necessarily bad in the show. It's like, again, like,
no,
I like the show, but I can't help but when I'm watching this, my brain's just going like a million miles a second, because I'm just thinking like, oh man, I wish they wouldn't have changed that or wouldn't have done that. And that's what I said last week about like, I need to just detach a little bit, but like Austin said, like, I don't know if I can. Like, I don't think I can detach, you know?
I just think we all love Abby so much, specifically, you know, like as a character. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah. A big thing for this big selling point for me in the video game was when she hits the final blow, you can see that like bit of blood spurt out. And it's like, okay,
brain matter on the club.
Yeah. It's like, okay, he's a goner. And not that I didn't feel about that. It was still impactful from the TV show standpoint.
For sure.
But I was just like, okay, like that's how they're gonna, end it, is with that kind of ice picky sound effect. I didn't even like the sound effect too. I thought it was a little chintzy. I was like, okay, he's a goner for sure, I guess. But it was just that selling point of her just like bam, and then the blood and brain matter comes out. It's like, yeah, that's, I don't know. Did anybody else feel like it was, I guess that's what we're all kind of agreeing on, except for maybe Zoo, that was a big kind of leave out.
It's weird because I see the point, and that it's, you don't get that final like beat of it's almost anticlimactic in a way. But I feel like the way that it's set up, that it fits in this portrayal of the scene. And I think that especially when we, there's another change that they make where Manny doesn't spit on Joel's body, which I read. Yes, he just says fucking pendejo, which in the game he says burn in hell pendejo, and he spits on him.
Yeah.
And I read that they did film versions where he spit on Joel, and they chose the better take. I don't know what that means, but the better take. So who knows, like, the context of that? And that happened to be one where he didn't spit on his body. But
I do kind of have a hot take when because I replayed the game in like a month ago, and I've never really liked that. And I know that's the point. And again, like, I'm someone that I like the death. I think it has to happen. Like, there's something about him spitting on him though that it has always sat a little wrong with me.
Really?
Not saying they should have changed it, but it's always been something whenever I play the game, it makes me uncomfortable. And I think it's because I like Manny so much later. It like really upsets me that he does that. And that's the point, but
Right.
I don't know. I've always it's always kind of like bothered me a little bit.
There is something weird about somebody spitting on you because, like, you know, I'm a
It's
big
a
wrestling
lot,
fan.
like-
Yeah, and a lot of times to really sell somebody as being like a heel, they'll spit, and it's always
Right.
like, man, I just something about, which I guess is kind of the point, is to make you.
It is the point.
And
It's a me problem.
Yeah,
I
I
like.
do wish that he spit on him though.
I
I
do
like
want to
Psycho's
say,
Psycho's
I do.
comment. Yeah,
I do want to
Something
say,
about stabbing is too clean, but
100%.
blunt force is just so much more monstrous and messy.
Exactly.
I think that is why they show Abby physically attacking him, though, because that's something we don't see in the game. So I think it's like a give and take where we
Mhm.
see we don't get the final hit being the golf club, but it's almost more fitting for game Abby to use her hands against Joel. And yet we see show Abby just her knuckles are bloodied, and his face is obviously bloody. She is going into him. When they cut to that, I was like, oh man, Abby she's going ham. And I think that then, to contrast that of getting the stab, I do want to clarify, Psycho, in case you didn't know, the stab is from the golf club. It's just that it's broken off, so she still uses the golf club, which I thought was important because we talked about this a little bit last week in the after show. But if Abby wound up killing Joel with not the golf club, like shooting him or something like that, I think we all would have been even more bothered by it than we are now. But I felt like the way that it was done, it was still the golf club, and that was important to me. If it wasn't, I know it's so weird to say that it's like, why do you care how? But I think it did matter because it was what was there. It was something that she grabs, and then she breaks it. She's like, "Fuck it, I don't care. I'll keep going." And then when Owen says end it, she's like, "Okay." And it's something that both in the game and the show, I think it's something where Abby just didn't think. She's just so consumed by the hate. But I do think that before we get into the final part, which I'm sure we all want to talk about, is Bella's performance there and Ellie coming in. I want to say that I got into a little tiff with someone on Reddit because they were saying that this is insane that I think this, and I don't really think it's insane. I mean, I'm interested to what you guys think, but I really hope that they are not setting up Manny to replace Jordan. We've talked about this a little bit in the after show,
Yep.
but Manny is so, again, I don't want to spoil things for other people, but Manny his story going forward is very important for Abby. And if they are going to get rid of that and just make him be show Jordan, I will be pretty upset about that because Jordan is a nothing character and Manny is an important character. That's why Jordan's not in the show. And Jordan in this scene in the game gets stabbed by Ellie. She gets a scar on his face. That's what happened to Manny now. I'm really hoping that does not mean that Manny will take Jordan's storyline going forward because that would be a real shame. And if that winds up happening, I'll be here ranting about that. But hopefully this is a way for just to get that little scar scene on a character and we still get Manny's proper storyline going forward. But when I saw that, I would be lying if I wasn't a little nervous. And I was
thought
like,
of
oh
you.
no.
I remember you specifically.
I think
Right,
they're just inserting Manny into the moment of Jordan
I
getting.
hope so. That's what I hope.
I don't think they're like. I think like where Jordan is later in the story. I think it'll just be some random person that doesn't matter.
Or maybe that scene is cut entirely, which I'd be honestly like.
It's fine.
The fact of the matter is that there are, again, without spoiling the game structure for show only watchers, there are 5 episodes left. And I'm sure we all have the same idea of where we think this season will end. I think that 5 episodes is enough to get there, especially if, again, we don't know. But my theory is they won't actually go to Seattle until not next episode, but the next episode. I think next episode is going to be more about fallout from what we saw.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, they only have what? That'll be episode 4.
4.
So the 4, 5, 6, and 7. They got 4 episodes. So I think they could do it, but it would require cutting out a lot of things and moving things around. And again, things that even before we knew that the game or the show was going to have a 7-episode season, these are things that I already figured they would cut because a lot of it is very gamey, which is kind of rare for Last of Us. Last of Us doesn't have many what I would consider very gamey elements. And again, I've talked about this with you guys before, but a lot of stuff where if you play on a higher difficulty that you have to avoid entirely or you'll just die. So it's something that I could understand why they do that if they wind up doing that. Again, we don't know. It's just my theory. But we will see what happens with that. But does anybody have anything else to say before we get into the ending with Bella? Before we get to that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got to talk about the monologue. Not to back it up that far.
Okay.
I think so. I kind of wrote down the bullet points of what she says. First one, I did have issues at the end of season 1 with the montage of the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really elaborate on that publicly because obviously it bleeds into this episode specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Abby's line about did you count? I kind of sat there and I was like, no, it was a montage. I have no idea like the scope of like what he did. All I got was the sense of that he killed a lot of people.
I should have written down, but I did count actually at the time.
Mhm.
I tried to keep track, and then I went back and I watched. I don't remember the number that I
What'd you
came
come
to
up
at the
with?
time.
Yeah,
I don't
if it was
remember.
18 and then plus 1, I'm like, okay, I'll eat my words.
Yes,
You know?
I'm definitely. I should have done that before we went live, but I'll definitely go back and I will update you guys and see if it actually is 18. But I remember I did try to count because I was like, I'd love to see actually how many people Joel is killing here.
Right. Then there was like a flashback, like a quick moment of going back to the hospital. I'm nitpicking as hell so much, but that was unnecessary. I'm sorry.
I agree.
That's a little hand-holdy.
Yep, I agree very much.
We understand who he was.
Yeah.
We didn't need to see it.
Especially because you spelled it out for us.
Yeah.
And then she flat out says she's like, you didn't even look at him. The nurses said.
Yeah, so I mean, we get it.
You killed my dad. I was 19. I saw him. I thought all of that was like, okay, that's, you know what? This is a show. It's not the game. We're not holding back on who Abby is. I'm on board. I have no option but to be on board. But it's then when she goes, I was in a militia in Seattle. We have a code where I was starting to feel a little like, okay, we are just exposition vomiting on the audience right now. And there's even more. Like she goes, she reiterates that I'm going to kill you. You're a lawless piece of shit. There's, I cannot read my own damn handwriting here. But by the time Joel just does say, just shut the fuck up and do it already, I'm kind of with him where I feel like we could have done it earlier, or maybe I'm
too
my
long.
media literacy is dead, and I'm supposed to get that she is going on for too long. But I think there are ways to do that and not make it actually taxing on the audience. But what is done is done. That's just kind of what I wanted to say about that real quick. I think that's the last thing I wanted to say about that scene.
Okay. Well, to end this scene, we have Ellie storm into the room, and obviously we've already talked about Joel's actual death scene, but from Bella's perspective, or from our perspective, seeing the focus on Bella Ramsey, I thought this was the moment where I was like, oh man, she just did a fantastic job. Their whole just facial expressions I thought was very good. And unlike Ashley Johnson in the game, I felt that they were they went about it a different way. And I don't know if it was intentional, but I don't really think that maybe it was a conscious effort. I don't know. But in the game, I feel that Ashley Johnson's Ellie is very angry,
Yeah,
and then sad when Joel dies. And I feel like it's reversed in the show, where you start to see Joel get up. It's not really, Joel fucking get up as in the game, where she's just so angry at what's happening. In the show, I feel like she's almost pleading. And again, it's the same word choice, but it's just the way the lines are delivered by Bella Ramsey as opposed to Ashley Johnson, where I feel like it's sadness. I feel bad for Ellie in that moment. Of course, I feel heartbroken in the game as well, but it's just this level of sadness that her voice is like breaking down, and then Joel dies, and then she's built with this rage, which I thought that Bella Ramsey did very well, where they say, you're all gonna fucking die. And the way Ellie says it in the game is more so she's just crying, Ashley Johnson, and is just like, gonna fucking kill you. And it's not such a visceral scream like Bella Ramsey is doing in this scene. And I wonder if that's a conscious choice by the directors, or if that's just how Ashley versus Bella are playing the scene.
yeah.
But how, like, again, to boil it down to the base level, for me, how I saw it is, in the game, Ellie is sad or angry and then sad. And then in the show, it's reversed, where Ellie is sad and then angry. That's just something, when I immediately first watched it, and then going back to rewatch that scene, I felt that is something that stood out to me personally.
I think they did a great job. It was something I was a little worried about, like getting the emotional delivery here. So I was satisfied with it for sure. Me personally, it's kind of crazy. I've been a little negative with everything else, I guess, but I did like this for sure.
What Jedi Master Joshua was saying there? Why do you think Abby?
Yes, I was gonna.
lets her live?
I didn't show the checks. I was gonna like go into a
Sorry.
thing. No, that's fine. You can go into. Go ahead.
I don't. Abby isn't letting her. It's her friends that are like, no, we came here to just kill Joel, and that's it. I think if Owen and everyone else isn't there, Abby would have killed Dina and Ellie. And
Well,
just
she
been,
said that
done it.
she kind of insinuated she would kill like whoever, the beginning or whatever. So,
Right.
And then obviously
they're
my dad asked the same thing. He was like, they're just going to leave. And I was like, I mean,
they're not.
you heard what they said. That's all they came
Yeah.
to do. And they're going to make sure that's all they came to do.
I think that Owen's plea for ending things, like, oh wait, I'm going backwards. Sorry. No, I like that they kept the like drop in sound, the white
Yes.
noise overtaking
sure.
everything,
Yeah.
the anxiety, the emotions are so heightened, sensory overload. I thought that was a really important thing to keep, and I'm glad that they did. Bella, yeah, nailed it. I really was impressed. I think in the last episode we saw some demonstrations of rage that I was like, okay, hopeful for this.
Mm.
I can't ever remember the damn cannibal's name in the first David. That like when Bella as Ellie is, beating him down to death, like that was
keeps going.
I've been sold on their rage, but the fluctuation between confusion
Fucking hell, sick.
and sadness to anger in this scene was very impressive. I was very happy that they did such a excellent job conveying
And
this whole whirlwind of emotion.
I know people will, of course, still criticize them, but I feel like I've been sold for a long time on their performance of Ellie, but I feel like I still see people all the time criticizing.
Yeah,
just
the
casting
Bella
in
backlash
general.
is
Right.
honestly disturbing at this point.
But I if you still feel that way after this episode, I don't think nothing's changing your mind.
Yeah,
Because I thought that they did a fantastic job of really just showing that they do have the chops to do what Ellie does this season going forward. Because they did.
As a blanket statement about everything that ever gets adapted, if you just want it to be a carbon copy of the game down to like a T, why don't you just go play the game?
Yeah. That's
Like-
kind of why I think I restarted playing it. I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm
like
just
if you
gonna-
want it to be exactly the same from start,
Austin
like,
says, fuck
go
the
do
show. Going into the game.
No,
go read the book, go do whatever. Like it's not always going to be the same.
Yeah, like I feel like I should keep reiterating that I did
No,
like
of
the
course.
episode.
Episode was good.
Yes, I feel like I'm gonna pin a comment because it does kind of seem just the way we're talking about it that we did not like this episode, but none of us said we didn't like it.
I
Even
gave it a thumbs up.
me, Tyler, and Jacob all gave it a thumbs up, and even Austin and the other Tyler, you guys gave it like a here. So we didn't dislike this. It's just that we have critiques, and again, a lot of it, as good art should, in my opinion, is judged when the whole thing is out. I would never judge a book by the first chapter, So
Right.
a lot of this is, of course, this show would be pretty boring if all we did was say, "Oh, we'll see what happens next week."
Yeah.
So a lot of this is just our concerns. But again, there have been multiple times where I've posed the question to you guys where I said, if they do this, would you feel better? And you guys were like, yeah. So it's just, we will see what happens going forward. And again, same thing on the opposite end, where if they don't do the things that I think they will do, then in a few weeks, you'll see me, bitching. So we will see, of course. But I think that it's maybe it's a little less echo chambery than maybe we thought.
At the
Which is good in a way.
the end of like the day, I did find myself during that first viewing reliving a lot of that like choked up kind of tension, raised emotions that I did playing the game the first time.
That is
When Ellie enters the mansion or the resort or whatever it is, and they're like coming around the corner, I felt myself kind of feeling that same, we're about to enter the point of no return. I was like, oh man, if I just turn it off here, I'll be okay. I don't have to relive this
in the
thing.
background still. Like
this
I love
is something this is something that I wanted to get into as our final point. So we can get into it now because there's still some other stuff I wanted to say, but I'll just move this up. But something that I wanted to talk about is all of our reactions to just Joel dying, but also the people that we know who have seen the episode. Because for me, I was very curious if I would cry because I've been open about this. I'm very emotional when it comes to media. I did not. And I find that kind of surprising. But I think the reason why is similar to the game, because I actually, even when I played it, I played it yesterday. I don't cry at that scene in the game. It's not till after where I start to get teary-eyed, because in the moment, it's actually not sadness, is not the emotion I'm feeling. I feel disgusted. And I did feel that way in the game. I was like, I can't believe Joel is being taken away from us. And Zach from Black Series Cantina texted me after he watched the episode last night, and he said, I'm gutted.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is exactly how I would describe it as well. It's just so deflating.
Mhm.
My mom was like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's dead. My mom said initially, and obviously she's come around now, but she said, that's it, Michael, I'm not watching the show anymore. And that's something that, I'm sure people have said that. My mom says that all the time. Anytime a character dies, my mom's
dad's
like, I'm
the
done.
same way. My dad's the
But-
same way.
Yeah, but the thing that I will talk about, and I wanted to bring up, because again, like I said, I felt disgusted. My mom was like completely distraught. But for me specifically, the biggest problem I had is, while my mom is like that, my dad is not. So then I asked my dad, I'm like, so what was going through your head? Like, after the episode, I talked to him. My dad's like, what's going through my head is, I get it. From Abby's perspective, Joel's getting what he deserved. And it's just showing that the cycle of violence continues. And I was like, very astute, Dad, but maybe you shouldn't be feeling that now. Maybe in... So
I think your dad's played the game, bro.
This is the thing. It's like, that's kind of the intended reaction later on, but
Yeah.
I almost feel like my dad was robbed of feeling bad for Joel, because he kind of did it. And the way my dad, and again, this might be a problem with my dad, because my dad watches a lot of TV, and he does, my dad is very involved in the show while he's watching it, and then afterwards, like, leaves his head. So my dad was like, he felt like he needed to be reintroduced to these characters, and he said, the words he used, I wrote it down. He said that he felt like Joel was on autopilot, and they kept showing Abby's perspective. So in the moment, he didn't really care about Joel. He cared more about Abby, that she was wronged. And that is something that is, again, so different from my mom. My mom was like, fuck this. I can't believe this is happening. I hate this character. And again, so maybe it's down to the individual person, because I feel like the reaction, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the reaction that Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann were trying to get was my mom's reaction, not my dad's reaction. So I don't know. I want to hear what you guys say for the people who in your life have not played the game, but have seen this.
I mean, it goes into the whole thing that I've been saying. It's like, I really love the show. I just fundamentally disagree with revealing so much about Abby. It just changes, like, sort of like what Austin was saying. It's like I love the first season, because even the things that they change, it's like the spirit and core of what the story is unchanged. But I think with season 2, like, revealing who Abby is, I think it changes something that we as gamers got to experience, that now most viewers, like your dad, will never experience, because of the way that he feels, because he gets Abby. Some people are going to get her, and then other people will be like, no, we got to take this bitch down. But it's
like my mom. So it's like,
but your mom's reaction is with the reaction that everybody should have, but your dad doesn't. So the way they've chosen to tell the story, it robs the feeling that you're supposed to have,
I haven't spoken about, how they feel about Abby in this moment, but not my parents, but I'd love to hear, like, Justin from Out of the Basement and his fiance, and Zach and his wife, what they think about Abby in this moment because I love Caitlyn, but gotta hate Abby.
Mm-hmm.
She killed our boy. She killed Joel.
Yeah, I know for me, when I first played the game and this happened, I was pissed. Like I had to quit playing, which is the intended reaction. Right. For the show, like I was just smiling through the whole thing because I'm like, hey, here we go. We're finally here. Yeah. We're finally here.
I can stop tiptoeing on
I was like, I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yes, that was something. As soon as the episode ended, the first thing I told my parents is, now you see a big reason why people don't like this game. Yeah. Because that I've talked about that a lot, about how people have hated this game.
I saw Psycho said the tears come later in the story for him. That emotion comes later for me in the game as well, and I'm sure we can all kind of figure where that comes in at.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, my dad though had the intended reaction, like, fuck this bitch.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe
dad was like, Joe, you should let that bitch die.
Maybe it's just, I don't know.
So we'll see. And
if most people, I would love to see, obviously it's anecdotal evidence, but I would love to see if most people I know fall more to my mom's side or my dad's. Because if most people do fall to my mom's side, then I feel like the show did do its job. But if more people fall to my dad's side, then that's where the issue lies. And obviously it's very hard for us five to know because, we already know the story. But if more people are feeling like my mom than my dad, then I feel like even with all its reveals that it still did a good job. So
if they get then it's definitely a win for them. They definitely took a calculated risk, like we've all said, and we continue to say.
You know what?
Time will tell, man.
I want to ask people like Joshua in chat. I know there's a few of you watching. What's your opinion on Abby right now? How do you feel? Do you understand, or do you hate her? Or a combination, because you could also understand. Like, my mom gets it, but she still says, fuck this bitch. So it's
it's kind of what the therapist says, right? Like, sure, I understand why you did it, but like, it was the way you did it,
Right.
Yeah, very true.
It's a little foreshadowing,
100%. I'm interested to see what chat says on this. But
my best friend is currently watching, so like maybe he'll text me before we're done, and I can share his reaction.
Okay. But
this shit's sad as fuck, man.
It is sad. It's still sad, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What did Austin? What did Audrey think?
We really don't like. When we watch things together, we don't really like talk about it like afterwards. It's usually like a let's go to bed and talk about it later sort of thing.
Okay.
So we haven't had like our discussion about it yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've been oh, sorry, Zooey, go ahead.
No, I was just happy. I'm interested to hear what she says in the future. Keep us updated.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've been trying to get my mom to get into the second season so far, but she wants to rewatch the first one, and she's even having trouble like getting into that. Apparently, she's seen it before. So, anyway, I'm very interested to know what she thinks about it, though, because now we're 2 episodes in. So maybe as like another one releases, she'll like binge the first 3 or something. I think that's kind of what her idea is. So,
okay. So Joshua says he understands it, but was still shouting at her. Then we have Harpo saying that doesn't feel for her. And then we have Phil saying that didn't have to torture him. And again, that's kind of like Dr. Forgon was saying, where you see like the, the way that she does it.
Yeah.
Like as she says in the first episode, do it slowly. So, and again, you could argue that like is like, hitting you in the head with the hammer, hammering the point in.
Like I said, they took a calculated risk, and who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Before we get into like the final part now, does anyone have anything else to say about Joel's death scene?
Yeah, I can't wait for him to be resurrected.
Bro.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's gonna be crazy.
Can't wait to see him hooked up to the fucking ventilator.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
When-
real Palpatine moment.
Yeah,
Yep,
when he,
yeah.
Somehow Joel returned.
when he gets in
That'd
the,
be crazy.
I can't wait when they show that he gets in the Bacta tank with Cobb.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then he like loads up the shotgun and he's like, "I'm gonna go get the horse we left, and I'm gonna go get her."
Yeah, and then he's gonna say, "You know what, Ellie? We are the last of us."
Right.
Yeah,
That's it. That's it.
that's gonna be my favorite part.
Game of the year.
It was
Yeah.
it was Tommy wearing a mask the whole time. It wasn't actually. Joel.
Yeah. But the episode ends with Ashley Johnson's cover. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry because I do want to talk about this for sure, but we all forgot a very important thing about Joel's death, which is when Ellie is kicked into the stomach, the scene does not end. Ellie crawls over to Joel,
Mhm.
and that is something that I thought was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because again, a little change that we didn't talk about as well is when Ellie says, "Joel, fucking get up," and he tries.
Yeah.
And that's so heartbreaking. And you see that, unlike the game where it's not really made clear, especially since he was hit in the head so much, how much is he aware of what's going on at that point, or is he just fully, essentially brain dead? But in the show, he's clearly aware that Ellie's there and he tries, and it's heartbreaking because the last thing that he sees is Ellie. And then she crawls over to him, and we don't know. In that moment, maybe Ellie thinks that she's dying. Maybe Ellie just wants to be close to him. Of course she does. We've seen Ellie do it before in season 1 when Joel was severely injured. So that I thought was a welcome change. I did like that. When they didn't cut originally, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll like this. What are they going to do? Why didn't they cut? But then what they did with it, I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's the way Bella looks at him too.
Mhm.
You know, when Ellie's on top of him, it's very
Yes, like Harpo says, the Lion King scene. That scene always makes me tear up in the Lion King.
Yep.
Very sad.
This is gonna sound like such a nitpick, but I wish Ellie had a little bit more blood on her, like the nose,
That's
because she does get clocked a few times when she enters that room. I don't know. There's something about that. I like how messy and gross the world is, and yeah, it's nitpick as hell. But I was sitting there, I was like, damn, someone kick her once and get some blood on, make her a little messy.
Give her one more.
Make her look like the fucking crazed animal that she's about to become.
right. If we're talking about little
maybe that'll be
nitpicks like
later.
that,
She'll look
Yeah,
like a
yeah, okay.
sane individual later.
if we're talking about little nitpicks like that, something that I did notice, there's no recoil on any of these guns, and it's kind of annoying. It's just something.
What about
Guns-
the?
Yeah.
Justin hates that. I know that. But I just don't like when Abby shot him with the shotgun and the knee. There's no that shotgun.
yeah.
doesn't
It's the
go
way
anywhere.
it's the way the camera pans over really fast too. Even if there was recoil, it's hard to kind of even see it in that moment. The way that it's edited.
Yeah, and again, it's not something I am not super concerned about stuff like that. The only time I'm ever concerned about that is when it's extremely egregious. I know people, the ones of us here that have watched The Walking Dead.
The ones of us.
Yeah, the ones of us. In season 2 of The Walking Dead, where Herschel has his infinite ammo. sheet
Yes.
in the-
Why didn't they not keep that gun?
Yeah, that's like a super egregious point where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, and there's no recoil on that gun either.
Yeah.
It's just the infinite ammo shotgun with
You're
no
like, yeah.
recoil. Yeah,
Shit
that
was so lit.
right
We're
when
about
it's
to save the world.
when it's that egregious, that's when I notice it. But otherwise, it's fine.
Can't all
I
be
have
John Wick,
another
bro.
little nitpick. Crazy detail. I love the B-roll of all the bullets, or shells, like the shell casings, collecting around
Yes,
people's feet.
yeah.
That was
Oh yeah.
really sick. but then it's interspliced with like an overhead shot of that like wall.
Oh, and you don't.
No bullets.
I didn't notice that. Damn.
Speaking of going, one more thing about the horde. Shout out Lord of the Rings. All right, I love my Lord of the Rings little moment where he's running through the wall, and we're like, oh, we gotta get it. I like that.
I do like the whole
Battle
idea
Elms,
with the oil as well,
Yeah.
like, and then blowing up the barrels, and that was cool. Again, it's just cool moments like that.
Yeah.
But now I can go back to where I interrupted myself, where I said the episode ends with Ashley Johnson's cover of "Through the Valley," which is a special song to people like us who have played the game, because that is the first time we saw anything about The Last of Us Part 2, because that was the initial reveal trailer. It was Ashley Johnson playing Through the Valley. And for people who don't know, Ashley Johnson is the voice actor and performance actor, mocap actor of Ellie in the game. And that was her voice singing
And plays her
Through
mom.
the Valley. And plays her mom, Anna, in Last of Us Season 1.
Very, very iconic trailer. It was showed at
Yes.
the PlayStation Experience in 2016. I remember the time watching
Crazy,
so
it's
many.
been that long.
I know. I remember watching so many like
Damn.
reaction videos to like and like people in the crowd screaming for it and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. But such an iconic trailer. And the funny thing about that trailer is at the end, Joel is in the trailer. So a little
Yeah,
early Naughty Dog misdirect.
right. And
See, like I can't be sad during like the episode when that song starts playing with Ashley singing because I'm like,
Yeah. Oh
Ashley,
man,
right.
I was hyped, bro. I was like,
right,
yeah.
that was again, and I'm wondering
little treat
because
for us real fans.
I was wondering if we were actually going to get the song, because Future Days, last week's episode, we did not get Future Days the song in that episode, although that will come, I'm sure. We did not have it in the episode. I wonder if every single episode now will be a song title that's relevant. I could see that happening. Maybe we'll get the Wayfaring Stranger.
As
you
long
know,
as the songs
something
aren't
like
the
that.
fucking end of the episode.
I'm interested to see. We'll see. Again,
yeah.
they're not revealing each episode
Next-
title until soon. So,
Next episode's called "Something's Got a Hold on Me."
oh, that has been revealed.
Oh.
Okay. Interesting. So,
I mean, that was a quick Google. I could be wrong. You know, Google's plagued with AI right now, so
motherfucker.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
we'll see.
we will see. But yeah, I thought that was great, and it is.
Yeah, my note. I literally wrote like Ashley.
That's great. It is a haunting shot where we see Joel's body being dragged, and then
I love that.
Yeah,
shot.
that was disturbing.
yeah,
I love that shot.
Well,
It
it's
is
also
great.
Ellie's like keeps looking back, like she can't
Yeah.
even believe
Yeah.
it.
Get
it
that
is.
slow pan up as there gets.
We in the trailer we see Ellie like screaming, waking up from I guess is a Jackson hospital. We'll find out. Screaming, so I'm sure Ellie will clearly be traumatized and affected by this. And we've talked about this a little bit about Dina, her being there. I don't think it's necessary, but that is why I do like it, because Dina still was there. Even though she was unconscious, she was still there. And it's not like she was unconscious before anything happened. Like, she saw that they were
Mm-hmm.
that they were in trouble.
Was
Dina
she
saw,
still unconscious on the horse? Because it kind of looked like she was.
Maybe just
I'm not sure.
waking up or something, like coming out of it.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
think it'd be interesting if next episode she wakes up and it's like she's in Jackson now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only just in Jackson, but in Jackson that's been
They did
decimated.
do a weird point of only saying this will only knock you out for an hour. So I was like, okay.
We will see. I do want to say, The Last of Us fandom, of course, the real.
bunch of level-headed, reasonable.
It's like Star Wars fans.
It sound,
Oh,
but
yeah.
see, here's the thing though. I actually make it a little different than Star Wars fans, because Star Wars fans, I feel the franchise is so large where some people don't like certain parts of the franchise. I would still consider them a real fan, even if they're a toxic fan.
Right.
But for some Last of Us, the people who don't like Last of Us 2, they've gone again. Not talking about reasonable people who like Last of Us 2. There are people like that who don't like it. That's fine. You don't have to like it. But the people that we're talking about, I feel like those people have gone so far in the other way.
They're too far gone.
Right. I gotta commend the people, Last of Us fandom in general, because although I have seen the stupid golf joke go around for 2 years at this point that I'm sure it has spoiled for people, for the most part, people like my parents, people like, that YouTuber that I've talked about last episode, Seska Says, she was super surprised. I've seen a lot of people on the Last of Us HBO subreddit, not the game subreddit, where they said, "Oh my God, I didn't know this was going to happen." So I'm glad that people got to feel that experience, because I imagine this is what people, A Song of Ice and Fire readers who knew the Red Wedding was coming, that's probably what they felt like, how we felt going into this. Like, we know what's coming and other people don't.
Shout out to A Song of Ice and Fire fans for not making a bunch of shitty Red Wedding jokes,
right? Instead of the stupid golf. Yeah, for sure.
For me, I never played this game until I got my PS5, so that was like
and you didn't
a year and a half ago, and I knew nothing about this game.
Awesome.
I just knew people hated it, and
I somehow dodged it. But the problem with it was when the leaks happened, again, it was back in 2020. We were like
I refused to look. I'm like, I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, we were a few months into the pandemic, and I was just excited for the game. And I saw that it leaked, but from that point on, I just, even on Twitter, if something popped up, I just scrolled past it. I just kind of didn't look at it. But the problem is, knowing that people were pissed going into the game, I was like, clearly Joel has to It already kind of had my head going of I can kind of imagine what's going to happen. Don't know when, but
I talked about this a little bit in the after show last week, but I'll talk about it now publicly because now everyone knows that Joel died. But there was the trailer of Last of Us 2. It makes it seem like Dina dies and that Ellie goes on a quest of revenge. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, nope, sorry, I don't buy it, because then it makes it look like a typical revenge quest. And I'm like, I don't think Naughty Dog would do that. I think that's such a cliche thing. I think Naughty Dog is better than that. So I think it's a misdirection. And I didn't think they would go as far as to put Joel in the trailer when he's not, which again, I am fine with that, even though a lot of people hate that. I'm fine with it. But so I expected Joel to die. And I remember talking to my friend where it wasn't really that shocking for me, because I told my friends, I was like, Joel's going to die this game. And I think it's going to happen a lot earlier than we expect. And my friend was like, I think he's going to die too, but probably won't be till the end of the game. And then when it happened, I was like, yeah. So I didn't really, again, just kind of like the show, I didn't have a shocking, sad feeling. It was just disgust because of how and why and stuff like that. But I think that the just the way that it went with Dina being the one that Ellie was going to avenge, I was like, no, that just, I don't think it would go that way. But overall, I do think that to go back to the episode, the final scene is very the word I used before was haunting. I do think that's the case, where we see just Joel's body being dragged across. It's very sad, but I did see a very funny meme. It's terrible, but there was a meme of Ellie saying, "Whose cargo now, Joel?"
Oh no!
It's awful, but
too soon.
Yeah,
the opening lines on Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I want Ellie to say. 100%. But
that is a very Ellie thing to say, though.
Script.
If it was not Joel, then yeah. But I also wanted to say that clearly this scene, this episode, it affected a lot of people. I'm sure there were many tears shed over Joel. We all love Joel. He was a fantastic character. I would honestly say one of the best characters in gaming is Joel Miller. And we still got more. I don't think that's a spoiler to say because it's in the trailer and Craig and Neil have talked about it. There's still more Joel to see. But
shout out Pedro, man. I love
yeah, shout out Pedro Pascal, of course.
Pedro.
Well, we're all gonna miss Joel Miller. I mean, even the Pope couldn't handle it. He was like,
checked
Joel,
out.
he's like, Joel's gone, I'm gone. So it's
That's crazy.
He checked out so he could play Oblivion. Actually,
yeah. There you go.
Oh, remaster.
Oh, yeah, I gotta.
But I think that's it. I did want to say that in between this last week, I did get 100 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you.
Oh,
That was very
Congratulations.
nice.
Yeah.
Way to go, Zoo.
I'm glad that I know, we've consistently had around 10 people watching this whole time, so that's very cool.
Shout out to those 10 people, bro.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I know, there are people. I know people firsthand have told me they've watched it. They watched the replay, so shout out Replay Gang as well.
Mhm.
And again, like I do on Figure Ball, I just love talking to you guys about
Yeah,
anything
for sure.
that I would like to do. So for this,
100%.
Last of Us, of course, even if nobody watched, I'd love it. But happy that people do like watching, even if it's only a few people. And this was a lot of fun. This was a brutal episode, but this was the episode we were all waiting for. And I
Yeah.
think there's kind of a relaxation where I'm like, okay, now we can talk about things. There's
Cat's
for a
out of the
long
bag.
time. Yes, that's how I felt. I was like, I couldn't. My family says, "Why do you like this game so much?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't talk about what the second game's about, really." So
Like you'll see.
no, it's like, yeah,
Yeah, your
It's like
dad
another-
kind of or pinned it, perfectly.
yeah.
Kind of ahead of the curve a little bit, but
Right.
yeah, no, he got it.
Oh, that reminds me. I do have to issue a correction. My fucking brother did not predict that Abby's father died.
Oh.
My brother knew. So I reprimanded my brother. I'm like, you can't say that when my parents are here. Like when our parents are here, bro.
Bro gave him detention.
Yeah, I didn't.
That's
I thought he guessed it. He
crazy.
did not. So I told him. He said he's known for, like, since the game came out, the story of the game. Although he said he doesn't know anything else. He said he knew that Abby's father was killed by Joel and knows that Abby takes revenge and kills Joel. Doesn't know anything else. So I'm like, all right, good. I'm glad you don't know anything else, but fucking hell. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because I remember last week where we were all like, oh man, my brother guessed it. This fucker didn't
What a
guess.
genius.
What a life hack. Last thing
Right.
I'll say is enjoy the ride, everybody.
Hell yeah. It's
It's gonna be a fun time, one way or the other.
yeah. And we will again, we said this a bunch of times, but just to be clear, even though we did have a lot of nitpicks this episode, overall feelings on the show for all of us, I think, are still positive.
I love the last
Oh,
episode.
yeah. Absolutely.
All right. I think that's it. So we'll be here next week, same time. I will say in a few, probably. Oh, wait, man. Hold on. This might be the week, actually. Yeah, I'm wrong. Next week is April 29th. I'm going to be in Disney World. So
Oh.
I'm gonna do. We're still gonna do this. I'm not gonna not do this, of course, but it might be not as long as we go, and I might have to trim some things down. But I'm gonna find a way because I'm not gonna leave us hanging.
Right.
So, but it'll be a little different next week.
Bro, gonna be sitting in Epcot. Streaming.
No. Luckily, we do this at night, so it's not too much of a problem.
If
But
we need to push it back a little bit later or something, I mean, we can talk about it later.
yeah, for sure, that's something we'll talk about. But we will see. But if it's not the same time, it'll definitely be the same day. So we'll be back here on Tuesday talking about The Last of Us. So bye, everyone.
Absolutely.
Fuck this woke.
Motherfucker woke
We'll
shit.
make the Last of Us.
And we're still going.
No.